Welcome back to another set review, this time of Panxiou?
Panxiou something.
Panxiou?
Yeah, ask River how it's supposed to be pronounced.
The woes of translating into a language without tonal qualities or something.
Yeah. So,
But
yeah, new set. I haven't actually looked that deeply into the set yet, but I'm pretty sure Purple already knows exactly what's going to happen.
Sure. But I mean this set is very expansive. 300 card set, almost. So lots of cards in it.
Yeah.
So our cards are just generally pretty tuned towards constructed. There's a lot of times when things are that normally aren't necessarily full constructed end up being like really pushed and like, okay, well, this is really, really good. Yeah, this is normally a constructed effect, but maybe you can try and make something happen here.
I mean, that's usually what happens when there's a multicolored set, right?
Yeah, that definitely adds to it. Where not only is this multi-colored set, but treasures and like playing 5-color spells
Yeah.
are things that just kind of happen in top decks at the moment.
Well, I mean, the 5-color lands did get nerfed somewhat, but we'll talk about that later, I guess.
So starting off, we have a very interesting removal spell in Comic Reawakening, which is almost like kind of a balance spell, kind of.
So it kills something, but they get to search their deck for anything that they want and top it.
Yeah, so it does hit Planeswalkers very efficiently. 1-mana Planeswalker removal is very nice, though how much you need 1-mana Planeswalker removal, I don't necessarily know. I think where you probably want this is more in aggressive decks. Potentially slower decks can use it because you can counter the thing as it comes back down. But really at that point, you might as well play like Crest or something.
Yeah.
But in aggressive decks, you can use the Tempo Swing maybe a bit more. Additionally, there's also like search taxes, so toddy and stuff, which makes this into more of proper removal.
I mean, do you have any ways to force your opponent to shuffle?
I mean, if you can give this flash somehow, I mean, Witch's Invocation is brought up occasionally. And if you can get it flash, then you play this in response to fetch, and it becomes really good.
Yeah, but then you have to play Witch's Invocation.
I mean, it's not that's not a bad card, per se. There's also stuff like exploring the mirror worlds that comes to mind, since that does force both players to shuffle.
Right.
But then again, why do you need 1-mana removal in your ramp deck?
Yeah, why aren't you just not playing Tendril Snare? Like, it's literally the same thing, right? If you think about it.
It hits Planeswalkers, which does matter, but yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe has some utility. Is a 1-drop, which matters for a card much later down in the set, but we'll get to that later. Another 1-drop, we have Glorious Rebirth, which got a minor rework. So if you were looking at I guess it's a major rework. If you look at the Plane Sculptures page, it no longer gains a bunch of life. Instead, second sunrises, kind of.
Yeah, and then if you have all 5 colors, then it Harmonicons for a turn.
So, Amelie, you do need a fair amount of setup for this, just because it does hit only non-lands. But if you can get this off, it seems pretty good. Just like get back a couple, like play Planeswalker, your opponent tries to kill it, you Glorious Rebirth it back, along those lines. Seems okay. There's obviously the more broken thing you can do with it. Second Sunrise being alluded to, where you can get back a whole bunch of very random cards that generate mana. Stuff like Vithian Arcanist generates Grixis mana on ETB, for example. Right. Additionally, admittedly that's restrictive, only it's in sorceries. There's also Dwindling Stores, which feels like it should get broken eventually. Maybe this card that does it, which just kind of 3 mana, generates 3 mana, it sacks itself when the Vanishing goes off. So this kind of generates mana that way.
Yeah.
Besides that, I'm not sure entirely what to do with this card. Maybe it does something fair, maybe it does something degenerate. I don't know. But moving on, we have another very impactful card in Xiaolong Wind, which is kind of like a balance or like Cataclysmic Gearhulk kind of style effect, but it makes an attempt at making them symmetrical.
So basically, you want to be controlling none of these types, while you want your opponent to be controlling all of those types.
Yeah, in addition to that, you probably want your opponent to have an empty graveyard and you to have a graveyard full of these types.
Yeah.
Except for creature, because I imagine 5/6 Flyer is probably the best creature you're going to get access to. But I think this probably goes pretty cleanly into like Tabia type shells. Not that they always play Tabia, but kind of like the Dawson type of stuff. Weeping Lotus, Dawson, both those ramp up to Xiaolong. Both of them are pretty bad against go wide boards. I guess Weeping Lotus isn't good against any board technically. And then you drop this, and hopefully you win basically on the spot. Hopefully.
Well, you also need your opponent to not randomly also have anything in graveyard and nothing in play, because that way they can benefit from it. Like, for example, with Planeswalkers, if you kill a Planeswalker and you play this thing, that's probably not good for you.
Yeah, I mean, there aren't a ton of Planeswalkers. I think there's enough ways to get around that's not as big of a deal. Like, maybe you want your removal to be like Event Horizon, because that exiles instead of Pithwilt, which doesn't. And like I was mentioning Dawson before, well, nice card with Dawson is Sealed Riftway.
Ooh, Sealed Riftway. Yeah.
In turn 5, Sealed Riftway your opponent's yard. Turn 6, untap Xiaolong, wipe your opponent's board, get back the Dawson that they killed.
And get back the Sealed Riftway to cantrip.
Yeah, that sounds pretty darn nice. There's probably a way to use enchantment part of this too, though, like Conspiracy Ravens, if you really want to go in this. Though, practically speaking, you probably don't need all of these types for this to be good, because you're all wiping your opponent's board, depending on the matchup. And you are getting 5/6, which is honestly pretty good. Not a ton of stuff kills a 5/6 flyer, importantly. Now, speaking of flyers, we have Gale Conjurant.
Unfortunately, not a Spellstutter sprite.
Yeah, I think if it was a spell splitter sprite, it'd be maybe a bit too general use scenario. Now it is just kind of a flyers card, if it is good in flyers. I'm still on Taisha, where you play your Phantasmal Owl on turn 1, turn 2 you Gale Conjurant, turn 3 you Gale Conjurant, turn 4 you Gale Conjurant, and maybe they're dead by then. I'm not sure. Phantasmal Owl is a pretty fast clock.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of the ideal that you do with this card. Obviously, the bad thing with this card is that you're on the draw, you don't have a turn 1 Phantasmal Owl, and then your opponent plays like a Weeping Lotus on turn 2, or removal for your 1-drop.
Yeah, and then
that
you
kind
weep.
of stuff. Yeah, because this is exceptionally bad against stuff like Void Flare.
And also, like, if you don't have a pack going, I mean, this literally does nothing, so...
Yeah, I guess we should mention that packs, you do need 2 creatures. This is, if you're not playing any 1-power guys, this is really bad.
Well, the good news is... I mean, also, it's 2 mana. You have to hold up 2 mana for this thing.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, holding up 2 mana is what a lot of decks do in this format. It does share some amount of synergy with Cane Dancer if you really want to do that.
Yeah.
Like, Cane Dancer's in its pack, Panya's in its pack, Announcer Preserves in its pack. I mean, there's some random cards that maybe you can consider. And maybe you can just play a more, like, tempo strategy. But, yeah, probably not ideal outside of flyers. Another kind of flyers card is Crystal Catcher.
Hey, it's Judge's Familiar, but for creatures.
Yeah, and Judge's Familiar sometimes showed up in very niche lists, but Flyers is pretty strong here, and I think Flyers probably wants this. Nice density card that does something else.
Yeah.
There are a couple of pretty nasty creatures that you don't want your opponent to land on curve. Profane MSA being probably the highest one on the list. Infectious Ego pretty high up there as well. Rapacious Rattler.
Yeah.
So delaying any of those by a turn is probably reason enough to play this card. Gets you another turn of beatdown and whatnot. And if they're playing them to just kill the Curse Catcher, then you're exceptionally happy to do that. And now, more Flyers card from Panxiou is Warden of the Divine Court, which is merely a white card, so would need to add white to your Flyers deck if you're not already playing it. But is just kind of a 2/3 Fire Lord, kind of. If you can afford to give up the random not 1-power flyer.
I mean, we already have a bunch of Flying Lords, though. So what sets this one different?
Yeah, that is maybe a good question. The one we do have is Xiaolong Guardian, which is alright, but is a 2-mana 1/1, which is kind of whatever in terms of like personal stats. So it does die to basically everything. Metal Munch being a particularly nasty element to it. So this is a bit better body just by itself. Attacks for 2 instead of attacking for 1. So smaller board, it's nice there. But then again, there are a ton more fire anthems that aren't creatures.
Yeah.
Storm, something, Sentinel, Banco Path, Griffin Country. But this does have a body. So maybe this is a consideration. If you want to mess around and dodge Eldraine's Rage and Metal Munch and stuff. Another Flyers card that's maybe less applicable in Flyer specifically, but just as a sideboard card, you have Windwing, which is kind of like a ethereal Borgator, except it's only creatures, but I think it's generally probably better in the board in quite a few decks. Mainly because it has decent stats and like does what pretty decently against burn.
You can also build around this thing because you can make it not trigger on your own stuff.
Yeah, you probably would not want to be playing many ETBs or have all your ETBs being 1-drops, or 1 power guys rather, to make the most use of this. But this does stop a fair amount of things while being a decent defensive body.
Well,
Stuff like Leyran Alpha, I'm thinking of.
It also means that your opponent can play around it if they manage to get a pack going, though.
Yeah, so the first Leyran Alpha, it does stop. The second Leyran Alpha, it does not stop.
So how likely is it for this thing to fail on stopping your opponent's ETBs?
I feel like it's... I mean, I think it probably really depends on deck. I do think that you probably need this to also... I think to want this card, you probably also need it to be good against burn. So if you're playing somewhere in a deck that doesn't have a great burn matchup, maybe you want this and it kind of kills both roles, even though it's maybe not the best at both roles. Ethereum Aborgator is probably better than this in most cases, but at the same time, there are a good amount of creature light decks where this is obviously going to hit most things, but definitely against creature heavy decks, just kind of by quantity of creatures they have, this might not hit everything. But moving on, we have Daoshi Spirit Dancer, which is a Savannah Alliance with upside.
Yeah, it's like that. What was that card from Canon Magic, the 1-mana 2/1 that sacrifices to give something indestructible?
Dauntless something.
Yeah, no, it's this, but for packs.
Yeah, Dauntless Bodyguard. That actually did have to choose on ETB. Here, I think this is probably better than Indestructible, probably, just because you get to reuse dies triggers and enters battlefield triggers. So it's seems more applicable outside of pure aggro decks, which is good because I don't think this is going to quite cut in most aggro decks. But if you want to protect like an Nishu or something, this does that. If you want to put, also in a million aggressive decks, it does copy Core Light Champions ETB or reuses it if it dies.
But like, if you Core Light Champion something that's no longer in its pack.
Yeah, so you would need a bit of finagling to get that to work. Like you can't go Daoshi Spirit Dancer turn and then follow up with Core Light Champion, because that would... Wait, does that actually desynchronize them? Because when Core Light dies, this is a 2-power creature.
Last known information, right? Wait. Yeah, last known information. It's not going to work.
Okay, so... But if you play this turn 3, so play a good 1-drop turn 1, Founding here or whatever, which the still protects, it kind of protects.
Okay.
And then you play Core Light Champion turn 2, and then you play some of these, play another Core Light Champion. If they kill any of the Core Light Champions, then this is going to come back. But the Core Light Champion doesn't have Thor on it.
What's the artifact you're using for...
Rare Lines.
Okay, because Shivali's Lance also turns off this thing, and also does not have this type synergy with it either, so,
Yeah, there's a fair amount of things going against this card.
In Soldier Aggro's deck, at least.
Yeah, but I think it protects enough things in other decks that this might be doable. I mean, it does work with the Merfolk 1-drop that gives a +1/+0 or to would get to reuse that.
The Triton.
Yeah, Lily Triton. Inish was mentioned before. If you want in slow decks, you can go like Inish to this Swan Cohort, Zareen.
Ooh, Swan Cohort. Yeah, that also works really nice with that. And yeah, Zareen too.
With Zareen in particular, you can even fetch this if you want to be cheeky. So if you're against a deck that just attacks on the board, you can go Zareen on 4, grab this, play this, and then they attack into you. You block with Zareen. Zareen dies, and then you sack with Spirit Dancer, which maybe you're also jumping with. The melee still does the damage, which is nice, but these still do the damage. And then Zareen comes back, EOT, you grab another one.
That does not seem very efficient.
I mean, it's not efficient, but you did get 4 power and blockers.
I guess. Wait, no, you didn't, because this thing, you need to not block this thing in order to sack it after Zareen dies.
Oh, that is true. I mean, there's stuff you can do with this card, probably.
Yeah, you have to, like, sack Zareen after blocks somehow.
Yeah, but we'll move on to other 1-drops or the 2-power things that this can get back. Fang, Light Within, which has a pretty good starting line of text. When it enters battlefield, non-creature spells cost 2 more to cast until your next turn.
So yeah, that's a very heavy tax on some decks.
Yeah, so in particular, your opponent wants to play RV on turn 3 and Zifang who says no, and then proceeds to beat you up very hard with the second mode, which has one of a creature attacks, not one or more creatures, whenever a creature attacks this turn, get a 1/1.
So that basically just doubles your entire board.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Amelia is maybe a bit on the slow side because you need to like alpha strike, and then if you attack with a lot of things, you're probably dealing a lot of damage. So you probably don't need the extra things, but it's always nice if you're in more contested board state, or if you just have low power creatures in general, the creature vomit type stuff.
Yeah.
And then the last mode has some stuff. Flying, first strike, indestructible, lifelink, vigilance, and +1/+1.
I mean, you can just put all of it on itself if you don't feel like doing the math.
Yeah, as much as this does kind of feel like a bit of a throwaway line of text in a lot of cases, I think this could come up occasionally, especially if you're using this maybe as a sideboard card against combo decks. In a like maybe bigger mana deck.
Oh yeah, Storm hates this thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, Amelia, there is some kind of contention, like competition between it and Zalkar, because Zalkar is probably better against Burn slightly, but this is also pretty good against Burn, to be honest.
Yeah.
But like Zalkar's harder to cast, but is slightly bigger body. But I think this is probably better just because it hits non-stormy combo decks, like particularly Reanimator. I think it's probably the best example of this, where Zalkar does not hit Reanimator, like at all.
I mean, against Storm, you do have to time this thing.
Yeah, against Storm, you would have to have some amount of pressure going on, or some way to reuse the ATB on this card. Kalen comes to mind.
Ooh, Kalen. Yeah, Kalen lock with this thing. That sounds painful.
Or some other way to like lock down the game. Maybe you have a 4-mana thing that locks down the game that this helps you get to, so you don't get comboed off on your opponent's turn 4. And in those cases, maybe the god mode matters. Maybe it helps get lethal. Flying is nice. Lifelink is nice too.
Indestructible is always nice. Vigilance is pretty nice with lifelink. I mean, it's a 5/5 indestructible flying thing, right?
I mean, yeah, I guess it is a 5/5. This is the first Transcend card we're talking about. And Transcend is kind of a crazy mechanic because in addition to all these modes being good, they also give +1/+1 counters.
Yeah, so you like once you activate the demigod ability, you're also a 3/3 in addition to the 2 text boxes of text that you've already done.
Yeah, and that you're very happy to have done. Additionally, even stuff like Creature Vomit kind of likes the God mode, just because you do get a fair amount of mana in Creature Vomit, just kind of naturally, between stuff like Gillo hitting lands and Critter's Companion making mana and whatnot. But yeah, this card has a ton of use case.
It's pushed as
very
heck,
powerful card.
basically. I mean, all the Transcendence cards are super pushed, but this is just the first one we're going to see, and you'll see later on how pushed some of these guys are. And
because we're from the future when we're recording this, because this is technically being recorded, I have actually played with this card in Fox, which is Candle Ox, but slightly updated.
With foxes?
Yeah. Stay tuned for the Ninja and Bloom set review.
Ooh. Okay, so what did you learn?
But yeah, this card does what it says. The first mode is really good. Where some decks are just completely shut down by it. Stuff like Artificer's Gift, for example, or any kind of mud deck. Just this comes really close to approximating Time Walk, which is absolutely brutal. And of course, the Demigod mode, well, maybe a bit expensive or awkward, does get you value.
Excuse me, expensive and awkward? You're already getting a 3/3 with this thing, and you've already gotten the ETB on a 2-mana 2/2.
Yeah, but it's still like cost 4. Like, let's just say you'd prefer to be playing stuff in your hand rather than activating the Demigod mode in terms of tempo. Because really, Zifang is coming down on turn 3, and then like you're Demigodding turn 4, maybe. And if you're Demigodding turn 4, then you're not like playing 3-drop or playing other things, making other use of your mana. And really, you're only getting you're not getting too many tokens that often because you did just play Zifang, who only gives you 1 body, and chances are your opponent's beating you up too in some way. So
okay.
Oh yeah, this card's very good.
I think you also discovered that the ETB also applies to yourself too.
Oh yeah, I did mess that up once. Didn't matter, fortunately. But yeah, play the Zifang last after all your Chevalier Lances and whatnot. But moving on to blue cards, we have Ephemeral Quinlan Kieran, which strikes me as a very crazy card.
It's a 1-mana clone.
And Novus even better than most clones because it copies permanents.
Ooh.
So it does have to copy multicolored permanents, which in addition to being a deck building restriction is also a bit of a tempo restriction, because obviously multicolored cards probably don't cost 1, at least most of the time.
Most of the time.
So yeah, so this isn't quite as fast as it could otherwise be, but it's still very, very efficient mana wise.
I mean, I don't know how you can get more efficient than 1 mana.
I mean 0 mana, Phyrexian mana. There's a few ways. But this is kind of combo bait. I treat this as combo bait. Like technically the clones are generally fair, but like 1 mana clones are generally unfair, I feel like.
So what's the most broken thing you can think of with this?
I mean, we mentioned Dwindling Stores with
Ooh, Dwindling Stores.
Glorious Rebirth. So that would turn this into a 1 mana, make 3 colors of any combination of colors, or
Ooh.
3 mana of any combination of colors.
That's Dark Ritual right there.
Yeah, which is obviously at least somewhat interesting. Additionally, this is also pretty easy to reanimate. So if we're talking Dwindling Stores, then we can talk about Back in the Damned. So you go turn 3 Dwindling Stores, remove a counter, play this, remove all 5 counters from both them. They're both in your yard. You have 5 mana. You play Back in the Damned, you get both back. So you have 2 mana floating and 2 Dwindling Stores in play, which is 8 mana. And then you do some other stuff. I don't know.
Okay.
There's also kind of more fair stuff with Sign of Fecundity, which this can copy. So you sign a Fecundity, you grab this, you play this, copy Scion, grab another one, or something else. Get a whole bunch of tutus.
Sure.
And there's like some other kind of random stuff, because really this is just really easy to fetch in general. So Duchess Odila 7th fetches it, but legendary creature. This can copy Planeswalkers, though you legend rule them, so not technically ideal, but then again, it's only 1 mana, so
Yeah.
even getting an additional ability for 1 mana is probably pretty good. I can't find anything that like super breaks this card in half necessarily, like 1 card combo kills or anything like that. But I think decent chance that there is one, or there will be one down the line. That I'm just not saying.
Anyways, enough dreaming. Let's move on to a more fair card. Or is it fair? Yeah, it's fair, right?
Yeah, I think I'd call Messenger of the Heavens kind of fair.
I mean, it didn't feel very fair when I play against it, but you know, that's just my deck not having a way to get through chump blockers.
Yeah, so the noble thing on the Messenger of the Heavens is that it can repeat ETBs really efficiently. So you can go turn 1 Messenger of the Heavens, turn 2 play a 1 power guy, attack with Messenger of the Heavens, and then you get to flicker both Messenger and the 1 power thing you played. So what Wiki's referring to, I was flickering Pronouncer Preserves, which is a pretty good thing to flicker.
It's also a pretty good card in general, as we've discovered recently.
Yeah, so you can. So I was using Sunrise River with Pronouncer Preserves, so you can go turn 1 Messenger of the Heavens, turn 2 Pronouncer attack, and then you get Pronouncer trigger for the ETB, you get Pronouncer trigger for the flicker, just have Sunrise River, so you just have a lot of mana always up. So that was one deck that I built around this card. There's of course other things you can do with this. Look, it's King Dancer, which admittedly doesn't flicker King Dancer too well because it's not too many active things for King Dancer to get back. Bear of Tormented Truths, tip out your opponent's hand. Additionally, Bear of Tormented Truth can also target yourself, so it makes it a bit easier to get value that way because you can bear yourself. At worst case, you get a looting, or rather a rummaging. And if you can manage to play the card before you flicker it again, then you get a straight card draw. Ancestral Council. I know you like getting a bunch of Ancestral Council triggers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Dreamsight, isn't in a format anymore, but yeah, I still like Ancestral Council triggers.
So if you can get Messenger of the Heavens down, some Ancestral Council swinging in, you just generate so much value. And of course, there's also just kind of more generic stuff where you use this in flyers, you flicker your Chattering Perch.
Ooh, that's 2 card draws right there. Like, I guess, loots right there.
Yeah, and that's just an exceptional amount of filtering. Additionally, it also gives pseudo vigilance. So if you are playing a Ego deck, it helps you against burn or other aggressive decks because you always have stuff to jump block with. Also resets Panya, which is kind of nasty. So you can always have Panya up. Can't take infinite turns because Panya has that if it's not an extra turn clause. But yeah, this card's just very efficient. Is a bit restrictive in what you can do with it because 1 power creatures aren't too common, but there's enough that there's pretty clear stuff that you can do with it.
Yeah.
Next, we have Paint the Skies with Legend, which is a time walk that has a high tide attached.
But 6 mana and requires all colors.
But it's a time walk with plus high tide. That's like
I mean, are you really gonna pay 6 mana for a time walk?
plus high tide. High tide. I think I would.
I mean, yeah, you would, but like, would you want to do that in a deck?
I mean, that's the question. Like, is this good enough?
So what's your
I feel
answer?
like, I mean, Amelie, this is a lot more annoying. Getting 5 calls for whooshing after Chirigenja Sanctuary was nerfed.
Yeah.
And all these Invocation, the like old one, couple of iterations back.
Yeah.
And you can't cost reduce this because like Flatbird Austin doesn't work with it. And like we're talking about dwindling stores, but this doesn't actually make dwindling stores make more mana.
Right.
So there's a couple of problems with this card, but like if you can do it, if you do have a shell that makes 5 colors, then this is potentially really good.
What? So you get a time walk with some extra mana. I mean, is there anything?
Let's talk about theoreticals and go. Okay, I'm going to go turn 1 Thriving Bubbling.
Okay.
I'm going to go turn 2 Tower of the Sky, get Little Pig.
Okay.
And then I'm going to go turn 3 Paint the Skies with Legend, paying 5 colors.
Wait, why are you playing this card in your Tower Over the Sky Little Pig deck?
So you can play it turn 3.
Okay, sure. What do you do if you don't draw that?
Well, you don't draw a witch. I mean, hopefully you hit your Little Pig.
Okay.
That's what Little Pig hopes to do. Hopefully you get your turn 1 to walk. Otherwise you just do a turn slower, which is okay.
Okay, sure. So yeah, you cast this thing. Now what?
Then you untap your Thriving Bubbling as well, so you get your three counters. And then you untap, it's turn 4. So even before playing land, you have 3 lands plus Thriving Bubbling, plus the 2 Little Pig lands, which is 12 mana.
Okay.
And then you can like Tower of the Sky for what? You can do it for 4, right? I see. I mean, it's double X, to be fair, 4 double X.
Okay.
So you can pay 5 Wooburg into that, and then you get your EHS or something. And then you have a 5/5, and you just EHS. And that maybe hit another Little Pig or a Thriving Bubbling, maybe both. Because you only need to spend 10 mana into that.
Okay.
And then you like untap your Thriving Bubbling. So then you have like 6/7 and 5/5. Actually, you can play a Little Pig from Exile too. So you have like a 6/7, a 5/5, and you just EHS. You probably have like 6 cards in hand, and opponent just took their turn too. So I mean,
is this any better than the normal ramp payoffs?
Well, I mean, yes.
Is it better
like
as a deck?
That is a pretty good 10-3 having all that 7 play, but yeah, maybe a bit specific, maybe a bit to win more.
Okay.
But there are things that you can spend a bunch of mana on in that deck. And that deck doesn't win particularly quickly, so ways to win with Little Pig that are fast are potentially appreciated. But maybe you can use Wilder Shrine Pilgrimage to get this out kind of fast.
So it's ready for anything, or it's pre-nerf ready for anything, but sorcery speed. So like it's a lot worse than pre-nerf ready for anything.
Also Surveil 1 instead of Scry 2, which is worse. Surveil is better than Scry, but 1 is less than 2.
Yes, that's very true. 1 is less than 2.
So this is comparable to One Person's Trash. I think generally it's going to be better than One Person's Trash, which only draws a card and makes an untapped treasure. Just have a prize, but I think generally the idea with this card is that you want to be playing 4-drop on turn 3, or using that mana very quickly on the following turn, which One Person's Trash is not as good at because it doesn't filter. So ignoring things like Paint the Skies with Legends, I think Reanimator probably likes this card a fair bit.
Yeah, I mean, did Reanimator used to play Ready for Anything pre-nerf?
Well, Ready for Anything pre-nerf was only played by one deck, which is Thunder Cosmic Princess, because it was only around for a month.
Nobody else played that obviously broken card?
Well, you say it's obviously broken, but there was 4 copies at the GP, and they're all mine, so
clearly you recognize that card was busted.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
But you can also compare this to Confirm, because Confirm did have a good amount of decks that just wanted to play it as 2-mana ramp. And this is kind of close to that. Not as good, obviously, but but definitely decks that want to have very powerful turn 3s. Probably like this card. It's mainly comparable to stuff like Weeping Lotus, maybe, where Weeping Lotus bed acceleration, but doesn't filter or cantrip. So
I mean, also it's cane danceable, but sorcery speed, so you know.
yeah, definitely some awkwardness there. But anything that helps up your Cane Dancer count is always very nice. So if you do manage to be in a deck that wants Cane Dancer and wants to play a 4-drop on turn 3 or something along those lines, yeah, very nice synergy. Moving on to black, we have Eternal Wanderings, which also makes a top treasure token. Also,
so it's basically that spell from Canon Magic. What was it called again? Deadly Dispute.
Village Rites?
Yeah, Deadly Dispute.
Deadly Dispute?
Right? Yeah, except it costs 1 mana, so it's like the Village Rites version of Deadly Dispute, right?
Yeah, Village Rites is an instant. So is Deadly Dispute, actually. But this is kind of the combination. Doesn't sack an artifact. It's an instant, but only costs 1 mana and still makes a treasure token.
Yeah.
So evidently this is very efficient. Like I always thought Village Rites was kind of absurdly efficient, and even as a sorcery.
Village Rites even in the format?
I don't know if it actually is.
No, it's not. Is Altar's Reap in this format? There's probably a functional reprint of Altar's Reap in the format somewhere. But anyways.
Yeah. But yeah, this does what it says. I think you play in decks that have stuff to sack, obviously. And I think it's generally going to be pretty good in those decks.
The problem is, has there been any decks in the format that want to play this sort of just a card that sacks something and draws cards as a one-shot effect?
I mean, there's the Egg Aristocrats type of deck. I mean, Volatile Stonework pops up occasionally as well.
Yeah, but those decks play Egg, which is a thing that continuously sacks, not just a one-shot effect.
Yeah, but I mean, are you really going to turn down this? Like, even if it's your only non-creature? So, in addition to Egg? Because all the black 1-drops that reanimate really enjoy the extra mana.
Yeah, right. Maybe you can find room for it, I guess.
But yeah, Volatile Stonework also has the kind of similarities of they both make artifacts, or they both are artifacts. So maybe there's potentially a Dawson thing, maybe. Sworn Cohort, we mentioned previously, that's another nice thing to sack.
Yeah, Sworn Cohort, always pretty good.
But really just making treasures is really good, and that's why treasures show up a lot in a lot of commonly played cards. Moving forward, for more black cards, we have... We haven't want to touch on that set. We have the Ashen Absolution.
At least attempt to say and no more Wong.
The legendary creature Hawk's Demon Monk.
Okay, so a lot of text again. I mean, all of these transcend creatures have a lot of text.
Yeah, so I think it's probably worth going over all the text individually, because they all do reasonably different things. EDB, you sack a non-land, really non-token permanent. And then your opponent does the same.
Yeah, I mean,
if you did.
It's only fair that you have to sack a non-token thing to make the opponent sack a non-token thing.
Yeah, but relevantly, you can't abuse this with any kind of random tokens that you're lying around. You need to like actually have something to sack. So something like a Sealed Riftway, because Sealed Riftway works with a lot of things.
Yeah.
Or we mentioned Volatile Stonework as another thing. Hey, Sworn Cohort shows up again now. This is a legendary creature after all.
Oh yeah, and then you can like use Sworn Cohort to fetch the ring, and then which fetches Sworn Cohort again.
Yeah, exactly. And then you play another one of these. But
you can also play with Kaelin, right? Because Sworn Cohort Kaelin, I mean, that's already a deck.
Yeah, that kind of Esper shell. It has been pretty good in the past. So this kind of effect is obviously really brutal if you can land it effectively, since it's really not symmetric at all. Since not only are you building around this card if you're playing it, but you also get to choose whether you sack or not.
Well, it can sack itself.
Yeah, it can sack itself, though I can't imagine that you want to sack itself too often.
I mean, Fleshbag Marauder, at worst, I guess.
Yeah, something. There's a reasonable fail case. I think the rest once we get to the rest of the card, it probably is good enough on its own that it's not probably going to be better than whatever your opponent's sacking. Though, of course, if your opponent has a glitch in play into 2 of their tokens, then yeah, you're going to sack this if it's your own choice.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I guess that is pretty good against planeswalkers that make tokens.
But relevantly, this does curve out of Profane MSA. And relevantly also, you probably don't want to sack Profane MSA.
Also relevant, you can fetch off Profane Emissary. Actually,
Yeah.
I feel like Profane Emissary got a lot of good hits these 2 sets.
Oh, absolutely. Lots of demons. I think a fair amount of demons in Panxiou, a lot of demons in Nanjing in Bloom.
And like they're all
if you want.
low-cost demons, which aren't as common before, right?
Yeah, definitely 3-drop demons are not super common. So in Panxiou, we have 5 demons, 2 of which we'll look at. And then in Nanjing Bloom, we have 12.
Mm.
So if you do want to cover this out of Profane MSA, you probably want to be sacking a 1-drop, since Profane MSA is really good for your turn 3 board state, if you have a demon. But moving past the first ability, Symmetric Discard, which is fine.
Becomes a 3/4.
Yeah, I think that's probably more important than the discard itself. Also not really symmetric, because, well, you can do it when you're empty-handed. And really nothing is symmetric in Magic. You can always make it asymmetric somehow.
Yeah.
You discard a land, your opponent discards the last card, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think, but really just becoming a 3/4 is probably the bigger deal. And then the God ability, which is also accelerated because the Demigod ability is really cheap, reanimates a lot of things for pretty cheap.
Yeah.
So X equals 3, only costs 4. You get back a 1-drop, a 2-drop, and a 3-drop.
So you get back your Profane Emissary that your opponent killed earlier, and then another copy of it, I guess? Or no, that's a bad idea.
Yeah, you're probably not building around the God ability too much, but yeah, just getting back with Finame, getting back to 1 cohort, getting back. I mean, maybe you play Volatile Stone with this, probably not. I guess it doesn't really make sense too, because your opponent sacks with a Volatile Stone was named. Maybe you have some random 1-drop to get back.
I mean, is there any good 3-drops that you run in these sorts of decks? Like, I guess 3-drops are where all your legends are, so you can probably fetch one of them.
And sacks itself, which isn't bad. And then becomes a 4/5, which is kind of pretty hard to deal with.
I mean, this thing could just be a 5-mana 4/5 with the ETB, and you still be pretty alright with that, right?
Yeah, unfortunately it has to be 6 mana because X can't be 0.
Oh.
Getting in the way of you just ignoring all the text on the God ability. But yeah, it is a pretty solid late game breakthrough kind of card, and does it really fast, unlike a lot of the other Transcend cards. Like we saw the white Transcend card, which I'm blanking on, Zifanku. The God ability costs 6. This does not cost anywhere, cost 6.
Man, all these card names are going to be so hard to memorize because they're just
What,
names.
You don't like the Ashen Absolution?
Sure, I'll remember the epitaph more than the name at this point.
Another legendary creature, we have Panlong, Remorseless Wind, which is just, I think, a decent top-end card. Nice body, evasion.
Creature Vomit's going to hate this.
Yeah, it hates on some decks pretty hard. Reanimates on both ETB and hit, and if it does kill something off the static ability, you can get it back with the reanimation ability on the ETB. So if you have any X1 with a good ETB, you can get another ETB off that. I don't think there's too much else to say about this card, but it's just decent 5-drop if you are inkling for a 5-drop that affects the board.
Yeah.
Moving on to red, we have Conquer Psyche, which gives a bunch of ETBs.
So it blinks a creature. Why is this thing in red? Shouldn't this thing have been white?
Well, it gives them haste.
Yeah, but it blinks the thing first.
It's probably flavorful somehow. Don't.
Yeah, but
probably.
But shouldn't this be white? Like, shouldn't this be white red? Like, this is a multicolored set. You had room for this.
I'm not going to question it too much because now we get to play it on more decks. You don't have to play white. I don't think this is unreasonable as a red card. Maybe a bend, but yeah, you got a whole bunch of ETBs, and you get an extra token to attack with.
I mean, so the problem is that it's a 3-mana sorcery, so you need to set it up.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the ideal is probably with Rapacious Rattler.
Yeah.
You play Rattler on 3, you play this on 4, you get 2 more Rattlers ETBs, then you attack with both Rattlers, and that put a lot of pressure on your opponent.
Yeah, and then next turn you play Fire True Seeker and blast this thing back, and then you do Fire True Seeker stuff, I guess.
Yeah, that also works too.
Actually, Kione, does this work with Kione?
Yeah. I mean, you'd have to sacrifice one, but...
Oh, right, that part of
Same
Kione.
as True Seeker. So maybe if you can get a Kiona kind of loop going, maybe conjure realities into this. Maybe Kiona can do its degenerate stuff with this card.
Yeah.
Maybe play one copy just as a utility piece in a hypothetical Kiona combo deck. Another kind of complex but really just kind of simple card is Harmonic Confluence. Harmonic.
Yeah.
Which is more or less a 3-mana draw 3 in red.
That I don't think 3-mana draw 3 in red is playable.
Well, it's there now, so if you want to play it, you definitely can.
I mean, you're not playing this in Burn, right? Burn can't afford to take 3 mana off to draw some cards.
Yeah, then you play like Mindstorm's Eye or something. But you can cast this off MSEM Antiquity, so does something at the very least. Maybe a more generally applicable card is Fires of Renewal, which competes with Sheldrain's Rage as a sweeper in instant speed decks.
Oh, it's like Volcanic Fallout, but it makes a treasure token instead of hitting you in the face.
Yeah, so Red White does 2 damage instead of 3 for Sheldrain's Rage, but makes a treasure, so it ramps you to 5, which is the all-important number for augmented spells.
Yeah?
So then you drop Thunder Roads or something.
Yeah, and then your aggro opponent cries.
Yeah. And then also past turn 2, it does function as a Pyroclasm if you want it as one, since the treasure is untapped. So you can go this turn 5 into Thunder Roads, or Thunder Road, if you want to play it like that. So yeah, it's another option. You can play it with Sheldrain's Rage, or you can choose not to.
Yeah.
Next card is Imperial Guardian, which is 4-power tribal payoff.
It's Furnaces of Wrath for things in its pack, but doesn't have an ETB and it doesn't do anything else.
I mean, it doesn't have an ETB, it does have a static ability.
Yeah, but like you need a board for that static ability to do stuff.
Yeah, but what if you do have that board? Then you're gonna hit them for 4 times n times 2 instead of 4 times n.
This is a 4 drop.
Number 4.
This is a 4 drop. Like I don't think this is good in this format.
Okay, but what if you go like Miang, 2 Dances with Dragons, into turn 2 Profane MSA, turn 3 just Lieutenant, turn 4 this, swing for a lot.
Okay, sure.
And relevantly, this does have trample, so
people are going to be extremely annoyed about the damage calculations.
Yeah, it's true that damage calculation with this is a bit weird because you sign the damage first and then it's doubled, right?
Yeah.
So if this is blocked by a X3, then you have to assign 3 damage to the X3 and then 1 damage to your opponent, and all that's doubled.
Yeah.
So the X3 takes 6, your opponent takes 2. But let's not talk about that and just think that, oh yes, you'll deal 8 with this on turn 5 and you'll be very happy.
Sure.
Next we have Liar's Dice. If you're keen for Constructed, this is probably more up your alley than Imperial Guardian. Because this puts a lot of cards into yard for free, kind of.
Quote unquote free.
So kind of basic plan might be play turn 2 Muck Bruiser, because every graveyard deck strategy starts with turn 2 Muck Bruiser. Turn 3 Liar's Dice, get 3 mana
what
back.
colors are you in again?
Green, red, blue.
Okay,
So-
sure, you're playing Teamer Graveyard for some reason.
I mean, I was playing blue-green graveyard. Don't just add another color. So
Okay.
then you add. So then this puts 3 cards in yard. You're also filtering towards whatever you want to filter for. So Dragon's Eye Descendant.
Okay.
And then what do you do with the rug mana you get from Liar's Dice? You play another Liar's Dice. Whoa!
Okay.
And then you put 3 more cards in yard that you discard, and then itself. And then what do you do with that rug mana? You play another Liar's Dice. Whoa, because you just drew 3 cards.
Sure.
And with that rug mana, well, I mean, you don't want to get too lucky here, but let's say you have the Liar's Dice and a 4th. And then you play a Dragon's Eye Descendant after that.
How much does Dragon's Eye cost?
3.
Oh, it only
Or
costs
2 and
3.
a green.
Okay.
So you successfully put 12 cards in yard from those 3 Liar's Dice. So your Muck Bruiser is getting at least +5. Then your Dragon's Eye Descendant is plus another 3 for the Muck Bruiser. And you get the Dragon's Eye Descendant trigger. So you got 15 cards in yard just from that. 4 of them are instant sorceries, so maybe it gets another +5/+5.
Okay.
So your Muck Bruiser is hitting him for 15 if you start with 0 cards in yard.
That's still not a one-shot.
Yeah, but you play. But the thing is, what's really disgusting about this is that this costs you 0 cards.
Does it? I mean, you have to play a card itself, right?
Yeah, but you draw that many cards +1.
Right.
So
Okay.
So after you play Dyer's Dice, you're going to have the same number of cards in hand as you did before. So this isn't some like, obviously this is a crazy nut draw, but even just one Dyer's Dice is suddenly turning on your Muck Breeze a turn earlier than it normally would be turned online, which is probably accelerating your clock by probably a full turn or so. Additionally, you can do stuff like turn 3 Liar's Dice, discard 2 cards. Let's say you're in Mardu, then with the black mana you play Unearth, get back Harriet, let's say, hypothetically. And then you have red-white to use Harriet
Right.
to put a vehicle into play, which find out what vehicle you put in play next time on set reviews in Nanja and Bloom.
Okay.
But assume that there's a vehicle that you would put in play.
Sure.
But yeah, you can also do graveyard stuff like that, or just play it in Unearth kind of strategies.
I mean, you can't play in Storm, right?
Probably not. Like, it's really hard to like break this card from a like Storm perspective. I think the main way you do it is by copying it, because rouging effects are copyable. Which is kind of weird, but it's just baked into the effect. So you can like reverberate this. Not that reverberate it's a card in format, or maybe it is. I don't know. You can copy this, and that you can generate mana that way.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, Flatboat. But if you have Flatboat Artisan in play, you can't make mana off this.
Right.
Because you need to spend 3 cards for it. So yeah, but a lot of potential in this card. I think just filling a graveyard is the most basic application of it, though. Also works well with Phoenixes, obviously. 0 mana spell, fills your yard.
Yeah.
Yeah, not much else you can do to make it good for Phoenixes. Really good sideboard card is the next one in Petal Blade. Maybe a really good sideboard card, probably. Shock, attacking a blocking creature, make a treasure token.
All right.
1 mana red.
Interesting.
So this has, if this goes off well, it's absolutely nuts, and you just completely obliterate the game. But it is a really kind of hard to cast. Like, your opponent kind of has to play into it a little bit. And Amelie 1 mana anti-aggro cards are really good. I mean, there's like Harm's Way.
I mean, there's also Metal Munch, which wrecks aggro decks even harder, assuming they have X1s.
Yeah. But if this does go off, and you go like, you're on the draw, your opponent plays a 1-drop, you play a mountain, your opponent attacks you with the 1-drop, you Petal Blade it, get a treasure, untap, play a 3-drop, and you're just going to be really far ahead versus aggro.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't happen, or the 1-drop gets to 3 toughness somehow, then you're going to look kind of sad.
Or if your opponent just doesn't attack with their 1-drop.
Yeah, if your opponent just plays around it.
Is it worth playing around this thing if you're an aggro deck?
I think it's worth considering playing around it. But like, you probably check for Cosmic Sinkhole first, and then if they don't sinkhole it, then you can decide if you like would win if they have this, or if you would lose. Because it does probably take up your entire turn too, if your opponent just doesn't attack into this. So
yeah.
But it's an option compared to like stuff like Void Flare, but a more conditional one. That card is Royal Retriever, which is a nice dog, and helps graveyard stuff. Scavenge is cheap, loots from graveyard. I don't know.
Yeah,
it exists.
Loots from graveyard. So I guess if there's any sort of Dredge-esque deck that wants to play from the graveyard, then there you go. Although you need a guy in play to use the Scavenge, right?
Yeah.
And you can target your opponent's creatures with Scavenge, right?
Oh, guess you can. Fair enough.
Well, there you go. Desperation play.
Maybe a good creature target with it is like Mausoleum Resident. You get some additional counter from the Mausoleum Resident ability as well.
Yeah, and then scavenging it triggers Firebird, and then like...
Yeah, and then you have a brew cooking.
Yeah, it's like Dredge Cats, but like, I guess Dredge Cats is sort of tight on slots right now, though.
Yeah. Really, you would feel pretty bad if you just played this on turn 2, because you're playing 2 mana 1/1, or 1/2. So, take the good with the bad. Probably want some mana discard to make this good.
But this thing does discard.
Yeah, so there's a bit of tension there. Maybe some mill would be good with it too. Next card, which arguably is like kind of a straight to constructed card, is Xiaolong Wind.
Xiaolong Refulgent Wind.
Great, I'm mispronouncing English words now. So it has augmented. Doesn't say it has augmented, but it's augmented.
Yeah.
And if you augment it, I guess it's not technically augmented, but practically speaking, it is. But yeah, it's free, kind of. Doesn't untap dwarfs, but it's basically free.
Well, No, it's more than free. If you untap something with Primal Resurgence, it's more than free, right? Assuming you're
That's
playing Primal
true.
Resurgence in your 5-color deck.
Yeah, that it might be a bit of a problem there, but yeah, that is true. If you have 5 lands and a land with Primal Resurgence and can make Ruberg, then yeah, does make mana. And then what do you do next? Well, you cast an instant sorcery spell, and you copy it.
So, Thunder Roads?
Yeah, Thunder Roads does work. Though you only get 1 additional copy, so maybe a bit worse than playing something like Star Jump. So you get 2 Star Jumps.
Star Jump
and
really
then-
the best option.
Well, Star Jump might be the best option because, well, anything you cast off Star Jump is also copied.
Wait, no more. It's not if. So it checks. Right.
Yeah.
No mana does mean that no more than 1
0
mana.
is less than more than 1. Yes.
Right. Okay, so,
So that's obviously pretty darn good if you can get that off. But also just playing any instant sorcery. I mean, Thunder Road obviously is still really good. Recall Forgotten Aeons, still of course very good to copy.
What happens if you copy the coalesce part of RFE? Oh, wait, never mind. That's impossible. Right.
Yeah, that's true. Don't ask me what that ruling is. I don't know if that ruling can happen. I don't know if there's any coalesce cards that cost less than 6.
Well, I'm pretty sure you can just copy
Maybe 1.
coalesced spells normally. So this ruling will have come up sometime, I guess, but it's not relevant here.
Yeah. And obviously there's a lot of hype around copying your spells, but you also got a free 5/5 flyer, so hard for this to be bad.
Man, a card that's so good that you forget that's also a 5/5 flyer.
You do have to adjust maybe a little bit from the typical like thriving building shells, because most of those payoffs are like planeswalkers and stuff, which don't get copied. But this is probably worth going out of your way for, even if glitch maybe isn't quite as good with Xiaolong as just like it normally kind of is casting it normally.
I mean, worst case scenario, you can't just hardcast this thing, or like hardcast it without augmented. It's still a 5-mana 5/5 that copies your spells. Like that's basically Veer, right?
Yeah, that's actually very true. Huh?
Is this better Veer?
Ignore the first. Huh? Maybe. I mean, it doesn't take 5-color mana. So you play this in like a 3-color deck. You like.
Yeah, just play it with RFE and Star Jump. You don't even have to.
Well, the problem is that if you're not on 5 colors, Star Jump's not being copied.
Okay, so just play with RFE then, and then it gets some other spells that let you free cast stuff because this thing works really well with free casts.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, Conjure Realities. I mean, you copy your Conjure. Oh, never mind, you can't copy it if you're.
Well, yeah, you need to be 4 colors to copy Conjure, and at 4 colors you might as well be 5 colors, right?
Right.
So I mean, like you're looking at like 3 mana value or less. So I mean, you can copy like. You can also reprise stuff. No, reprise when it would make up the mana cost.
I mean, you can just copy Solar Flares. Like,
yeah,
just
that's good
copy a bunch of Solar Flares. Isn't that what the EHS spells deck did, or Molten EHS deck sort of did?
Yeah, but rather than this cost 5, so maybe you don't. Getting a 5-drop in play is a bit tough if you're not ramping into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think enough on Xiaolong. Next card is Fu.
Okay, so it's like that other Chinese romanization system. I think it's Zufu. I don't know. I'm not sure.
It's another transcend creature. Obviously, I think immediately you can point this out as a creature vomit S card.
It's worse than Critters Companion.
It does have Glimpse of Nature tied to it.
Wait, it does?
Kind of.
It does have Glimpse. Huh. You can just play it and demigod it right away, right? At the Glimpse of Nature?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if there's any deck that super abuses Glimpse of Nature.
Elves?
Like well, elves, yes, but elves already has like too many options for Glimpse of Nature with like Dreamsight Well and Boarleaf, and this isn't an elf. Not that it would be bad in elves, but
and the god ability reminds me of Rofellos from Canon Magic. So
that is true.
Yeah, it's basically an elves card, except elves doesn't need it for some reason in this format because they already have too many good options.
Yeah. So immediately the Springleaf Drum ability, the Adamant like tap it and another creature, is kind of awkward. Because it's nowhere near as good as Critter's Companion.
Yeah.
As far as making mana goes. So like you really can't just vomit out things in the same way Creature's Fitter's Companion does. This is just normal dork. That's bad. But it still makes mana, so still works with a lot of stuff Critter's Companion works with, even if it's worse.
I think
it gives you a 2-drop and a 1-drop.
You're mostly playing it for the demigod ability, right?
Maybe, but I don't know how realistic it is for you to draw more than like 2 off it.
It's a Glimpse of Nature. Glimpse of Nature is banned in canon magic.
Yeah, but isn't that mostly because of elves or some other degenerate combo?
It's probably because of elves.
So, and this is a 2-mana Glimpse of Nature. So, what's the 2-mana Glimpse of Nature in canon? The blue-green one? Yeah, Beck and Call is not banned in Modern, so this is also killable, though you always have the opportunity to get off the demigod ability if you hold priority. So I think this is a card that's like clearly good, but I don't know if it has a distinct place where it's like broken in. I think Creature Vomit probably plays this, but isn't like super ecstatic about it. Like they prefer to play 8 Critters Companions, but they'll probably take it. So next we have Indomitable Anchorite, which I think I'm mainly going to point out because it's not that hard to turn 3.
Okay, so like what's the sequence?
Profane Emissary.
Oh, but you're playing Profane Emissary in a green deck.
Sure.
You need to fetch
alternatively,
you need to Polyp Pools. You need to fetch Polyp Pools Profane Emissary. And if you do that, you can't cast this on turn 3, right?
You can't, but there are like filter lands. There's like forest into black green dual into Polyp Pools.
Okay.
You can also do stuff like what's the 2-mana 5/5 elf creature? Far Dance Leech.
Yeah.
If you're playing an all creature deck, and that would give another creature in the pack if you have a 5-color land out. So not only can you play Anchorite on turn 3, but you can also protect it because you have 1 mana up for the indestructible ability.
Right.
So turn 3 you have 2 5/5s and can protect one of them. Yeah, moving on. Innovative Lanterns, I'll point out mainly because it can give itself haste in +1/+1 if you can play another creature on the same turn as it.
Okay, but why?
So you go turn 2, play Silent Wanderer, then play it, attack for 4.
That does not feel like a good enough payoff for playing Silent Wanderer.
What if you're playing Silent Wanderer anyways? What if you
this
does feel like it?
I don't think this fits in Creature Vomit.
Yeah, it probably doesn't. But you know, if you do have something worth giving haste to, then maybe it is worth getting away for.
Wait, what happens if you make a bunch of tokens? Like, does this trigger for all the tokens, or does it only trigger for one of them?
That is a great question.
Do you want to ping the judges now? Because that might actually matter a lot to this card's viability.
Yeah, you can ping judges.
Alright, I ping a judge, so let's see what they say later. Moving on, what's next?
Next we have Jade Harvester, which looks like it's pretty abusable. 5-mana 3/3 with cost reduction.
Yeah, and it's card types, so you know. How easily can you get card types into your yard?
Well, there's Dawson's Loot, which isn't too bad. I think there's also just typical stuff like Oracle's Vision gets sorcered in your yard.
I mean, like, Cindervale needs card types, right? So how easily do that deck, or does that deck get card types into its yard?
Not that easily, but they also are like really desperate for card types, where the deck doesn't work without card types. So they do need to be a bit more clean about how they're doing it. I think this card just wants a whole bunch of mill. Like if you're casting this for 2, I don't think you're too unhappy.
2-mana 3/3.
Yeah, I think there's kind of a problem with this card in that even if it's a 1-mana 3/3, I don't know if that's good enough.
So now you have to look
at down on turn 3.
Yeah, so now you have to look at the scavenger ability because that's what's going to be saving it.
Yeah, I think the scavenger ability is maybe better than the base body, which is weird. But scavenger ability is just really efficient. If you can give anything trample or any kind of evasion, pretty easy to go over the top of other things, press for lethal, and maybe more importantly, you don't have to draw it.
Yeah, you can just mill it and it'll count itself as a creature.
Yeah, that's true. It does cost reduce itself. So you will, and if you do mill 2 of these, then putting 6 +1/+1 counters on stuff is for green is pretty nasty. Probably nastier than getting 2 3/3s for 1.
You still have to get it down to green.
Yeah, but well, creature, land, sorcery for Monkey Shines and Oracle's Vision,
Okay.
and then you need 1 of Artifact or Instant.
Instant's probably doable. So what, you're playing blue-green threshold, and then you're playing the counters onto your flyer?
Yeah, I mean, you can also play in like the Liar's Dice kind of deck. Liar's Dice in Instant, by the way.
Wait.
I think we mentioned that.
Ah. Huh.
Yeah, card's pretty good.
Okay.
So, well, there's all your card types. So yeah.
Okay.
And then you scavenge it onto something.
Your flyer.
Yeah, your flyer or your random body, and then it's probably good. It's a bit annoying that you. I think this card would need to be played before I give an opinion on it.
Okay. Well,
but I have some doubts about this card.
We'll come back to it, I guess.
Next we have a card that's pretty clear about what it does in the Taizi, which is Big Dragon goes +6 card advantage on ETB.
Yeah, I think this is a bit excessive.
Yeah, if you want, but hey, if you want to get back your play Chart the Vast, and then this is 7-drop, and then you use this to get back Chart the Vast, and then you play Chart the Vast next turn, getting like 6 more cards in hand, and this is like a 15/15 trample.
And then you discard all of it to hand size.
Yeah, but you swung for 15, and you had 15 cards in your hand at one point, which means you're winning probably.
But you have to get up to 7 mana for it, though.
You can manage it.
I mean, no, the difference between 7 and 6, or 6 and 7 mana is as big as the difference between 5 and 6, right? Or no. For the difference between 3 and 6, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Like 6 is about half the size of 7, maybe like 60% of 7 or so. So there's that, but you get like 8/8 Trampler probably.
I mean,
that gets you like 6 cards, 5 cards. I think this goes really over the top.
Well, the thing with Charter Bass is you get all those cards, but you don't even play them usually, so.
Yeah, and this uses all the cards you don't play.
Right, but the ETB won't be able to pick up the cards you don't play.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay. Well,
so moving on, we have Nagui, the Lotus Charmed.
Close enough.
Which I think a lot of people are excited about this card because you control your opponent is a very fun line of text.
So basically, you get to know what's in your opponent's hand every time you cast a spell.
Yeah, relevant only instant sorceries. So main 2 things you care about there are cost-based counters. So Cosmic Sinkhole, your opponent's never going to pay for it because you control them.
Your opponent can't pay 0, right?
Well, you decide that they're not going to pay 0.
Yeah, but like Cosmic for X equals 0 is a way to counter spells with this thing out, right?
Yep.
Amazing.
And also just generally discard that you don't get a choice in. So pay up is really funny with this. So you choose something and then you make them discard something, the actual thing you wanted to discard.
And you get treasure anyways?
Yeah, which is funny.
Yeah, I love the flavor of that.
So additionally, there's all the things that of course work with it, like 3 cheers. You show your opponent your deck and you get to pick 3 cards out of it. Plus the cost reduces 3 cheers to black. Also a demon for Profane MSA.
I don't think you want this in the Profane Emissary deck, right? Or do you?
Maybe. I mean, I don't think it's that bad. It's just like...
Well, you don't really run down any instants or sources in Profane Emissary deck, right?
I mean, you can. There's no reason you don't want to.
So like pay up, I guess? But you do want Cosmic Sinkhole with this thing, so you're playing a blue-based Profane Emissary deck?
Yeah, why not? I don't think you want to play 4 of this card, even if you're going all in on it. So being able to fetch with Profane Emissary is really nice.
Okay.
I just think 3/5 is nice stats, so that's also nice. Also, it's blue or black, really easy in the mana.
Okay, so the judges have responded, and seems like Innovator Lanterns does not work the way we want it to. Okay.
So yeah, Innovative Lanterns, you want to play a big thing, not a whole bunch of small things. So, but if there's something good you can give haste to, and you randomly have a whole bunch of tokens or a whole bunch of cheap things you're able to throw into play before that, then maybe something reasonable.
Yeah.
But not back to Nagui. I think you probably want like 2 things. I think if you can control your opponent twice, that's probably good enough for Nagui to be good.
So pay up and Cosmic Sinkhole. There's your 2 options.
Yeah, I think if you can like play both those when you have Nagui out, then you're pretty happy. or if it's a really big thing like 3 Cheers, then you just need the one thing. Because black triple demonic suitor is good.
It's good. Yeah.
Just a little bit good. But moving on, we have who's
Shiho. Shiho.
command.
Yeah.
So I think the big mode on this card is the third mode. Target player discards 2, then draws 2. Particularly because if you are empty-handed, you just draw 2.
Oh yeah.
So then I think you kind of have to pick which modes you like. So whether that's stacking non-legendary permanent, if you want this to deal with planeswalkers, or the annoying legends, or picking the first 2 modes and playing like black-red prowess deck, or even just mono-red prowess.
Yeah, and you can also target the opponent with the discard mode, I guess. I don't think that's worth it, but that's something you can do.
Yeah, if you have some hand information, that's maybe interesting. Wheel your opponent out of their 2 answers to whatever you have going on is maybe a bit of desperation play, but it's definitely possible this doesn't do much on any given board state.
I think the most common options are going to be a +3/+0 and the wheel.
Yeah, if you're playing an aggressive deck, definitely the +3/+0 is going to be really good. I could see the legendary mode coming up a lot. There are a decent amount of highly played legends.
I mean, do you play this in Burn?
That's a good question.
Because like this legendary sack thing is a pretty good answer to some hate bears that people bring in against Burn.
I could see it.
Like it kills Toddy, it kills Zakur. Probably kills something else that I'm not thinking of.
I could see the argument. I guess with random chump blockers too, like L.
Yeah, or you can just like get rid of chump blockers by not making them be chump blockers for a turn.
Yeah, making 2 target creatures not be able to block is pretty substantial.
And then you also get to buff something on top of that, so...
Yeah. I do think it's probably better in prowess, just because you can use the 2 additional cards better.
I mean, prowess is basically just Burn, except spicier.
That's true. Also, if you... Also, I think you're a bit happier drawing multiple of these in prowess rather than Burn. Because I think with Burn, you're probably really only going to be using the +3/+0 and the discard draw. Maybe the mice can't block sometimes.
Yeah.
So if you draw multiple of these, I could definitely see it being a little bit dead or not as effective as it could be. Additionally, the +3/+0 is easier to mess up in Burn decks because they don't play as many creatures.
Yeah.
Additionally, this works with Phoenixes because rummaging. Anything that likes rummaging is going to like this card. Now go to Shiho.
Shiho or Shiho, depending on
the Sun King.
What the tones are supposed to be.
Yeah, the Sun King himself, which is a pretty overloaded card.
I mean, how many Summon do we have in the format so far?
I think it was like 4 or something. There's a good number of Sun Kings. I may not specifically name this, but good number of Monkey King, Journey to West kind of cards. So like all Transcend cards, this does a lot. Of course, +1/+1 counters, you always need to keep that in mind. Ward discarded card is really good. Makes killing this really obnoxious. Demigod, removal and draws a card. Though maybe not the best removal. And then
maybe you can snipe. I mean, you can try to snipe something with it.
Yeah, it's probably not. Being able to snipe common things is probably pretty easy. Probably, but you are probably gonna miss a decent number of really annoying permanents. Depending on how your deck is laid out. Like 5 drops, you're probably not gonna be able to kill.
Yeah.
But even if you don't have something to discard or something to kill, still draws a card and puts a counter. So good mana sink. And then it cheats on text space by having a backside.
Man, this is design innovation right there. This is what custom Magic is doing.
It is really cool that it doesn't transform, it just copies the backside. But it's also kind of like, it is cheating a little bit. Like, come on. Like one is custom Magic and have 3-sided cards is kind of what this card's asking.
Custom Magic would make 3-sided cards if they could.
So the Planeswalkers on the back is pretty nasty, though it is pretty expensive to get there. Takes 11 mana in total.
Yeah. So Well, it kills stuff. It makes opponents lose life. It draws you cards. Like, what is it? What doesn't it do?
That's a good question. Does a lot.
Yeah. See, it's flavorful because
I think what it doesn't do is slow down your opponent's linear game plan if you're not actually killing them with it. But I mean, it draws 2 cards, so
yeah.
and it makes them lose like 3 life. So at worst, and you still have the base card, which is a 5/5. So
That has word discarded card.
so lots of stuff going on. This is obviously going to be pretty good, and yeah.
Yeah.
Another command plus legendary creature combo. We have Zubashi's command, which
Zubat,
has a
yeah.
lot of utility. So fights, kills artifacts, blows up utility lands, and also returns lands to hand from graveyard.
I mean, I guess it does stuff.
Yeah, it does a lot.
I mean, are any of the commands good in any of the Modo tribal decks?
I don't think any of them are exceptional. I think that they get into like very narrow kind of spaces where like a modal deck's really going to be using fight and exile target artifact that much. I don't know. But they are modal cards, so Palison's going to copy them and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, this does do a lot. You can also use this on your own lands and then return a land. So
Not at the same time though.
yeah, at the same time.
Well, it
Targets
targets
you, not the landing
Oh wait,
graveyard.
it targets play. I see. Okay, I see. So I guess that does work.
So it does find a land. Worst case scenario fixes your mana as well. So maybe if you're playing 5-color deck, that's a use case.
Sure, you play your 2-mana mana fixer.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's only indestructible lands in the format, but if there were indestructible lands, this would obviously work very well. Also, this works very well with Quillia, since you can blow up your opponent's land and steal the token.
Oh yeah, that's funny.
That it gives. But moving on to Zhubaji himself.
So another Ascend creature, right?
Yeah, so it has the nice property of being a 3-drop that ramps you,
Okay.
which is very nice because you get to augment it faster for 5-color mana.
And then
So
Demigod ability sets up a delay trigger, so you also need to play a land after it.
yeah, so I think the big thing with this card is that it's really hard to play anything when he's in play, like your opponent. Like, what are you playing that if you're not killing him, then what are you playing that doesn't die to the demigod trigger?
Infectious Ego,
You can get 2 land drops.
but you can kill one of their lands, or like I guess it still works out for them because they can
Yeah, and with
activate.
fetch lands and stuff. So you get 2 land plays and the fetch lands double up on it.
Yeah.
And you say infectious ego, but not only does infectious ego die to land drops, but this is also going to be a 4/5.
Wait, right. I keep forgetting that these Transcend creatures are also going to be gigantic at the same time.
Yeah, that's one of the big things with Transcend is that it grows them, which it doesn't feel like it should, but it does, and they're huge creatures.
Okay, so like you drop this thing on turn 3, you play an extra land. I mean, or are you just going to hold lands in hand for the next turn?
I mean, I think ideally you play like a tap fetch land.
Yeah, and then next turn you activate the demigod and start machine gunning down your opponent's board.
Yeah, but I think kind of the question is, if your opponent's not killing this, how the hell do they add to the board in fear of the demigod trigger? Like, it feels like they kind of need to sack something into it.
Yeah,
almost.
But I mean, it's only 1 turn, so...
Yeah, it is 1 turn, but it's 1 turn against a ramp deck. And not only that, but this is turn 2able off a dork.
Right.
Additionally, unlike Antali Archdruid, which kind of has a similar kind of effect of playing additional lands and bolting things, this is turn 2able off Thriving Building without any additional help from lands. Like, you can do this off basics and Thriving Building.
Right.
So this is turn 2able. So you play this turn 2, and well, there's nothing that lives this.
Well, maybe you get unlucky and don't draw another land.
Yeah, but your opponent doesn't know that you don't have no land, right?
Yeah.
So, and even if you do play something into it, then this kills it. You attack 4, 4/5, and what the hell kills a 4/5? And then you're also ramping. So yeah, this card just does a lot.
And then eventually get to the 8-mana ability, I guess.
Which probably wins the game. Probably.
Does it?
Maybe.
Oh yeah, top the lands. Okay, yeah. So
probably.
Like this is like the aggro version of RFE, right?
Yeah, except you can play it with RFE. Ooh.
Does the colors work out that way?
Sure, why not? I mean, people are playing 5-color green decks anyways. Yeah, I think this card goes in a lot of decks. Admittedly, there is a lot of contention for 3-drop rank creatures. I mean, Offie, you mentioned Sangjin is another one. There's another one later in the set, even that ramps you 5. We also saw, I think we've seen one early in the set, even with Fires of Renewal.
Right.
There's a lot of things that ramp you to 5. Also, additionally, I'll mention that this is good with Ranger's Expertise, because Ranger's Expertise finds your land, ramps you, finds this, and nobody ramps you to the God mode, so that's nice as well.
Yeah.
And this also ramps you to Ranger's Expertise, of course. Moving on, we have another combo of Command plus Legend, but this time it's only the Command because Legend's not super great. And Shangzhong's Command,
Sanjing, probably.
which is just really efficient. So Fetch is a 1-drop. There's a lot of good 1-drops in the format. There's a lot of good 1-drops in the format. I mean, Panya, Cosmic Sinkhole. Sinkhole's a big one. Secret Scroll like Court, Children of the Clouds, Excellent.
Man,
This goes on and on.
1-drop with quotation marks.
Yeah, 1-drops, 1 and X. Mana value 1. Also, this fetches the modal payoffs in Power Sun and Nexus possibilities.
Right.
Which is good because it's a modal card. And then it does whatever you need it to. It's removal, it's life gain, it's grave hate. Yeah.
It's not removal, it's an edict.
Yeah, removals are edicts. But you can fetch actual removal with this as well. So
yeah.
So yeah, it's a single edict, but then you effect excellence and it becomes a double edict. This card is just very good and very efficient, I think. Moving on to 1-drop, which maybe it will fetch, potentially. It's 3 Divine Gate, which has the base case of being Innocent Blood, except it's white-black hybrid and has more text.
Oh, it is an Innocent Blood at base, right? Because X can be 0.
So then it has the kind of double funkiness of you can target the edict a little bit. So you can make X 1 so it doesn't hit tokens anymore. So you can make it like only hit the opponent, only hit specific thing, and then it also reanimate something.
Yeah. You can even just, you can't sack the thing that you just reanimate, because in 2 ways. So, I mean, you need the thing that you want to reanimate to be cheaper than the thing that you want to kill.
Yeah, or it could just, the thing you want to reanimate could just be something that you are willing to have die. I mean, we mentioned Sworn Cohort, and yet again, Sworn Cohort exists.
Right, but
and likes to die.
So you do the thing on 2, and then your opponent sacks a 2 or higher thing, and then I guess, but you can't return the Sworn Cohort off the same spell though, because it targets.
Yeah, I think you definitely need to be willing to play an Instant Blood in your deck to want this. But if you do have a couple creatures lying around in your deck that wants an Innocent Blood, or is willing to play an Innocent Blood, let's say you're playing Cabia, for instance.
I mean, what creature decks have historically played Exunt?
Well, the thing is that this is way better than Excellent in creature decks.
Yeah, but like it's a similar style of card, or it's a similar style of deck, where you want creatures that you want to be able to sack.
Yeah, I mean, mainly I think with Excellent, a lot of times you're just playing a creatureless deck. So here you do not want to be playing a creatureless deck, because then why aren't you playing Excellent? I guess the answer to that could be that you're in mono white.
I don't think this card's good in mono white if you're never using it, or using the backside of it.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, I think there's kind of a tension between you want creatures to reanimate, but you don't want too many creatures, so you can't just make Innocent Blood good. So whether you get around that with just not playing that many creatures, but playing a bunch that are nice to reanimate, but you don't need to, or by playing creatures that you are willing to let die. Next, we have another card that ramps 3 to 5 in Lusterbloom Diviner.
So,
and yeah, this ramps 3 to 5.
I think this goes in an augmented deck.
I'd be very inclined to agree. So you play this on turn 3, playing 3 different colors. You gain 3 life. Next turn you play 5-drop, and you gain 3 life and draw a card.
Or you use Thunder Roads. That also works.
Yeah, or you Thunder Roads, yeah. This is also really good with the Grand Submerge, because this is a non-legendary creature that ramps into the Grand Submerge and is hittable off the Grand Submerge. And if you hit it off the Grand Submerge, you're very happy.
Imagine if you play Grand Submerge and flip one of these guys plus 2 Thriving Bloodlings.
Yeah, then you gain 3 life, draw a card, and have 2 3/4s and a 1/3 and a treasure and a Grand Submerge.
Yeah.
That's probably, like we're talking about the Red Dragon being having these kind of nutty scenarios, but return to chimeras and play Grand Simurg.
Yeah, because Grand Simurg is just good on its own instead of having to combo with instant and sorcery spells.
Yeah. Additionally, you can play like Xiaolong Stone in Dragon Simurg decks, which you cannot play in Xiaolong, was it?
Xiaolong, probably.
Xiaolong. So the mana is made a bit easier. This isn't a human either, so you can play Lone Survivor, you can play Osk, which makes your mana nicer again. Xiaolong not being good with dorks as well. There's a lot of things going on that makes this card appealing. Amelia is a bit annoying to turn 2 off Thriving Building, because if you play Force turn 1, you need to play Blue-Red Land turn 2 to make Thriving Building tap for this. But I don't think that's going to be too big of a deal.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we have Master Zhu, the Martial Artisan, which copies your ETBs.
In a really weird way.
Yeah, so you need to attack to get the copy, or to get an additional trigger, rather. So stuff that seems good with this is obviously Aura Shapers, like Core Light Champion. There's also kind of more basic ETB stuff, like Rapacious Rattler. So if you have Rapacious Rattler in play, then you play Master Zhu, and then attack with the Rattler, you get another ETB, so you get a free Arc Lightning, and you're attacking with 3/3. Nice, good pressure.
Is there any ETB guides with haste that you want to use with this?
I don't think so. Not much. There's not too many hasty creatures in general that see a bunch of play.
I mean, Speaker of the Iris? That sounds pretty funny, but it's probably not the right deck for it. Like, imagine Speaker abounding this thing out.
And then attack with Speaker, abandon another thing out.
Yeah, probably not. It probably doesn't exist as a deck, but it's funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's an option, at the very least. But I think you're probably staying to more standard ETB stuff about haste,
Yeah.
just to make the ETBs a bit more powerful. So when you get an additional trigger, it's even better.
And then the activate ability is actually really cheap for what it does.
Yeah, so the kind of curve of like, well, maybe this is a bit on the clunky and side, but going like Master Zoo, turn 3 Rattler, turn 4, just use the activate ability, bring the Rattler twice.
Yeah.
Get 2 Arc Lightnings, hit for 6 is definitely something. Maybe not the first thing that you're trying to do, but definitely a thing that you can do if your opponent like taps out and doesn't have any removal up.
Yeah.
And also, if you're like a haste, that does give haste, though, be it on the expensive side.
Right.
Moving on, we have Daigui command.
So yeah, I've run this card in my updated GP winning deck list. I haven't played it yet because it's a sideboard card. Apparently it's good, I guess. It's probably mostly for the third mode, right?
Yeah, so third mode makes it, I think, pretty generally applicable. Just kind of non-creature hate.
It's 3 mana non-creature hate, but they get to draw again, so it doesn't permanently deal with stuff.
Yeah, but at the same time, it is at the very worst surveil 1 cantrip. And then at the best, you're probably using the copy mode. So copying your Pronouncer Preserves. I know you like to like Pronouncer Preserves, even copy them a few times.
Yeah, that sounds really nice. Is the second mode ever relevant? I guess it's good against board wipes. Wait, it's good against board wipes. Oh, I should have brought it in. Okay, yeah. I'm totally selling this card now.
The reach is also maybe relevant sometimes. Ambush an MSA of Antiquities or something.
No, make the Flyers deck cry, because all their 1/1s are traded into my Pronouncers now. Or even, no, trade into my Pronouncer tokens too.
Yeah. Also get to, you can copy your Pronouncer and then give them all reach.
And give them some toughness buffs and reach.
So I think this card's just pretty generally applicable. Good utility slot. Go to mono green decks, which is definitely pretty attractive. If you have a lot of mana sinking into it, the Surveil X is a lot of card filtering. Augments pretty easily. X spell is always nice for augmenting. So if you're playing with Thriving Building, you're pretty happy about that. You copy a Thriving Building, pretty happy about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. A nice command that does all the stuff. Moving on, we have another blue-green hybrid card in Reminiscence.
Is this good? Because it looks like limited fodder.
Well, it's kind of like Anticipate, right?
I guess.
Immediately put one back.
Like, Anticipate's not playable in this format.
Well, I wouldn't play Anticipate, but nobody Anticipate is cane danceable.
Right.
So it's not, you'd be willing to play Anticipate if there weren't other options. I think the important part of this card is it's Grave Hate, tied to Anticipate.
Huh. Yeah, good point.
So get rid of your opponent's Reprise stuff, get rid of your opponent's Coalesce stuff with your Cane Dancer target. That's nice and easy on the mana. That's also filtering you to cards that you want, milling more cards for your Cane Dancers or whatnot.
What Grave Hate did Cane Dancer decks have previously?
Dreams Come True.
Was that it?
That's why I was playing it. Now they also have Shangzhong's command as more Grave Hate. This is in slightly different colors, but they're both hybrid, so easy to play. But this being Grave Hate that's Cane Dancerable is really nice.
Yeah.
Because that means that it's main deckable in a very easy way. Makes your Cane Dancers a bit easier to play, a bit better in the opening hand, that kind of stuff. Just kind of run up against Ready for Anything a little bit, but I think you'll manage.
I mean, do you play both?
I think you probably play like 2 Reminiscence and then however many Ready for Anythings you want. That's probably how I do it.
All right.
But I think this kind of goes in a flex slot where like you kind of have everything short up and you have some slots left over to deal with whatever decks you need it to. This is probably a card that goes in there, which is just kind of generically good and occasionally great. Next card, we have a bit of a doozy in Adaptive Stance.
Oh yeah, I saw this card before. So, the first thing I thought when I saw this card was how good it would have been in Dreamside 8-Sack had it not been murdered in cold blood by the council.
Damn council.
Not
letting you win 3 GPs in a row with the deck.
But I still won 3 GPs in a row, so I can't complain too much. But like, imagine this thing fetching Ancestral Council. Like, that's just 4 extra copies of Ancestral Council in your 140-something card deck. That's like a decent amount of consistency.
Nobody is pretty tempo negative if you're fetching Ancestral Council, because Council does go back to hand.
But like, most of the time when you're playing that deck, you're gonna fetch Council on turn when you have 4 mana, and then immediately fetch a selective reading off that.
Yeah, so that's a very good use case scenario for it. If you want something a bit, there's also stuff like fetching Keone.
Yeah, that's something you can also do in Dreamside deck had it existed.
Well, you can do that now still because Keone still exists.
Yeah, but you don't have any reason to win a 140 card deck, so you're not getting as much added consistency with this thing.
And you don't have a reason to play a 140 card deck with that attitude. I mean, we're already looking at like 80 card not Dreamside, but just 8-sack decks before Dreamside 8-sack.
Yeah.
But Adaptive Stance, grab Keone grabs back Adaptive Stance, then Keone comes back to hand end of turn. You kind of pay 3 mana to get Keone in hand, and you still have Adaptive Stance.
Is that worth it?
Well, it's a value play.
It's
something you can do.
I mean, it's like playing a companion to your hand, I guess.
Yeah, so, and having those kind of passing plays is really nice against decks that aren't crushing you. What deck this is, I don't know. It's probably something degenerate where you're using Adaptive Stance and then getting Keone, and you've cast a whole bunch of spells, so you play like Truth Seekers early in the turn.
Well, this sounds like my type of deck.
So like you go like Adaptive Stance into Hands of Songwriter, then you What Lurks Beyond out the Songwriter, sack the Songwriter, grab a 5 Truth Seeker, getting Adaptive Stance from graveyard. Adaptive Stance gets something. Unfortunately, can't be Keone because it's exiled. And then that something maybe does something. Maybe I don't know.
Is there any 3 mana abound creatures? No, right? Because we already looked. I mean, worst case, you just fetch an Ancestral Council and put another lurk into your hand or something.
Yeah, and then that's probably good. Maybe I don't know.
I mean,
I guess a lot of stuff's happening.
Is 8-sack Dream real again?
But you do need a way to win the game after you do all that stuff, and I don't know what that is.
Hasted Infectious Egos. That's how you always win with 8-sack. Or just mid-range beatdown. That also works.
Yeah. And of course, you can start this other ways. I mean, you're alluding to Speak of the Iris, so you Speak of the Iris, and then you abound Adaptive Stance, and maybe that does stuff. I don't know. There's things that this card does, though, is kind of the point.
Yeah.
Moving on to a more fair card, we have Ajani, which is really annoying to kill. Has protection from odd or even, depending.
But does it do anything?
I mean, it alludes to a lot of pretty powerful planeswalkers and counter magic. I mean, the +1 is Garruk's +1, original Garruk's +1. And that's always been a pretty solid card in like Cube and stuff. Those games to life, just goes.
Yeah.
Taps 2 lands, 3 King Dancers. 5 loyalty is a lot. The 0 draws a card, and if your opponent draws a card, you draw another card. Makes it 4/4 on -3. Is annoying to kill. I don't know, does a lot. Then if a Johnny survives, then you +1 get a whole bunch of mana.
Yeah, and it's also just annoying to deal with because you have to keep track of the parity of counters on him.
Yeah, fortunately, you can always. The +1 means that having a +1 and a 0 means that you can always switch from odd to even or stay odd to even. But yeah, it's hard to say exactly how good that is because sometimes your opponent both has the bank command and has the end of all things, and sometimes they have one. Or maybe they have Bounty of the Gardens and End of All Things or something like that.
I feel like when you're playing
Or
this thing,
Profane.
you're gonna have to do a lot of predicting what's in your opponent's hand so you get the right parity.
Yeah, but Profane MSA and Tyrant's Breath, something along those lines. But I think this card's good enough to see play. I don't know exactly what it does. I don't know exactly what deck it goes into. Probably not something that caps it at 4. I don't think this is a great get to 4, play this, and say I win Planeswalker. I think you play this, and then it leads to bigger things, kind of Planeswalker.
Yeah.
But does do some interesting stuff.
Okay.
Another card that does interesting stuff is Forebear of Hibernation, which is theoretically symmetrical.
This card would have
Theoretically.
been great in Dreamsight 8-sack, I think.
Maybe.
Well, anyways, let's talk about decks that actually exist these days.
So 3 mana 2/3 is okay stat line for a utility creature. You play this, both players search for a creature. You hope that your creature is better than their creature, or you name their creature. Or they hopefully don't have any creatures and they're playing a creatureless deck.
And
But
then I guess you can choose any spell, right?
Yeah, you can choose any spell. So this is, if you are willing to main this deck, this is just main deckable combo hate.
I mean, they can fetch your Flatboards and all they want, I guess.
Yeah. They fetch Flatboard Olsen, you name Flatboard Olsen. That's kind of the idea.
No, you don't name Flatboards, and you name their combo piece.
And then, sure, you can do that too. Lots of options with this card. If you're ahead, I think this card's really good. If you're behind, I don't know how good this card is, because they do kind of worry that you'll play this, you won't have any board presence. Your opponent will fetch something scary, you'll name that thing, then they'll kill this and play their scary thing.
Right, that can
before
happen.
you have a chance to play your thing. But if your thing is scarier than their thing, then this card's probably pretty good. Probably. What exactly your thing is, I don't know though. Next we have Weijie, Dawn and Dusk.
So the +1 lets you reverse pod, I guess, from graveyard.
Yeah, so it reverse pods, but doesn't. You need to provide the killing, but you can target your opponent's stuff.
Huh. Well, I mean, it's not
Not
good on
from
3
you-
though, so you tell me to kill stuff first.
Yeah, I mean it's not bad on 3 because you do have the -2, which presumably, if you're playing this card, the -2 is going to be reasonable.
Yeah.
And I mean you do have the -1, which is also weird because you can target yourself with the -1, and maybe that's good sometimes.
Huh. Interesting.
It's kind of interesting because your opponent doesn't really want to discard a land because then you probably get a land back because you probably have a fetch land in graveyard. But it's an interesting card regardless. Lots of things that you can consider doing with this. I don't know if it ends up being efficient enough, but worth a mention.
Okay. Next up.
We have Celestial Banishment, which is a hard counter. That's not quite a hard counter.
It's
That is a counter spell.
It's a stifle, right?
Yeah, but it's a stifle that's also a counter spell. Because if the thing that you're targeting has an ETB, then this just is a counter spell.
I guess that's. I mean, it's a removal spell, not a counter spell, right? Because the thing's already in play.
Yeah, well, no, but it's not going to be in play, and it's not going to have any. It's not going to do anything once it's in play because you're countering the trigger.
Right. So is it a removal spell or a counter spell?
Yes.
And it's hybrid blue, so you don't even need to be in blue to counter stuff.
Yeah, that's also kind of interesting fact with it. This is kind of a card that you don't know how many things it misses until it comes up. If you're in green black, do you play this over Pithwilt ever? Is that it?
No, because Pithwilt kills the hate cards that are good against your deck.
Well, what if you're just playing a mid-range deck that has Pithwilts? Do you play this over Pithwilt?
No, because you need Pithwilt to kill stuff after they come down.
I guess that's fair. That this is kind of more like a counter spell in some ways because it's not going to kill your opponent's Well, and it kills your opponent's infectious ego after it comes down. Like,
Oh yeah,
on
that's
attack.
funny. I guess it
and then,
does.
like, it does counter planeswalkers too. Like, this is way better against planeswalkers than Fifth World.
I agree.
Like one of the few removal spells that can stop like matches parity with any planeswalker. And most of the good creatures in the format have ETBs or a whole bunch of triggered abilities. So like,
Also, why doesn't this thing hit artifacts? Like that's they're listing out the card types, but why is it just not non-land?
blue black can't hit artifacts.
Sure, I guess that works, but you can still counter them, I guess.
Yeah, blue black can stifle, but they can't kill artifacts. I think is the
Alright, sure.
logic.
And also, you mentioned how it's cane danceable, right?
Yeah, it's cane danceable. Yeah.
Man, at least it says non-land. Imagine if this thing hits land and it's cane danceable. Actually, no. Find Nothing already exists and it does something similar, so it's not too bad. But this affects a lot better than Find Nothing. So good thing it doesn't say, or good thing it doesn't hit lands.
So this card's quite good, though. Again, not sure what this misses, and it probably misses some important stuff. Maybe you do just get beat down by a resolved Lupacious Rattler and are sad about it. Or other things like MSA of Antiquities on that same track. You need to be hit by it before this deals with it. So you lose 3 life on that exchange compared to Fifth World. But it's a very solid option. Let's see. So then we have another pseudo counter spell in. I guess this is just counter spell in Slippery Assassin.
Hey, it's Veilborn Meddler, but like
Available.
artifact, but now aristocratic instead of instant speedy.
Yeah, and Veil Meddler is obviously really good. This does have a bit of tension because the color you need to play is blue, but blue doesn't have that many support cards for go wide strategies.
Really? I mean, you can just play it as a Spellspearer Sprite, right? With upside.
Yeah, you can, but I don't think Dex really wants actual Spellspearer Sprite. I mean, this is better just because it has a sack ability, but it doesn't have flying.
Also, like this thing's just a straight up an infinite sack outlet with upside for 2 and instant speed. Like, is there a better option for that sort of thing in this format?
I don't think there is. I think that there's this Veil 1 guy, for a black.
Right.
But this is definitely like really powerful. And I think if this didn't cost a blue, then it would be like absolutely excellent. I think because it costs blue, a lot of decks that would play this have to actually just splash blue for this, which is a bit awkward. Because I'm really blanking on anything that blue adds to go wide strategies, which is a bit unfortunate. But if you do have a blue go wide strategy, then this card is the nuts.
Despite being a frog, if this thing was a squirrel, then that joke would have made sense.
Implying it was it doesn't have to be a joke.
Okay.
We only have Lao Jiang command. Yeah, what you said.
Yeah.
Which laughs at Thunder Road, because read that first mode.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to counter Thunder Roads with the Secrets of the Core Light Court revised onto it, here's your guy.
For 4 mana.
Yeah, the card's not good, but you can laugh at Thunder Roads. And the card's okay.
So it makes 2/1/1s. It's almost a banned command.
Almost. The 4th mode does always at least draw 1, so it does count your opponent's draw step.
Always? You're being a bit too
not
optimistic.
on your turn. Well, if you're casting your opponent's turn, which is probably normal. But yeah, this is, I think, largely going to be a bit worse than that command, even if it does counter Thunder Roads much more efficiently than that command.
Yeah.
But it's an option. It definitely wrecks Thunder Road really hard. So there's that.
Okay, next up.
We have the actual legendary creature.
Sure, we'll just
Myself?
call it that.
Apex of Austerity, which laughs at flash decks a little bit and has a nicely sized body, 2/4, 3/5.
And then this demigod ability is it's the thing on the command, and then
Then it also has a Panya type ability as well.
Okay.
Which I don't think this card is quite good enough to, unless if you want to specifically beat up on flash decks.
Hey, Burn loses a flash really hard.
Yes, you can definitely play this in Burn. Maybe I'd have to think on that a little bit. I don't.
I mean,
No,
with Call Axlinger, you're playing all fetch lands anyways, so you know.
Sure. Yeah, let's okay. This is gonna be a burn staple. Let's go with that. Moving on, we have something that might be a burn staple in Spirit Lantern Incendiary.
Wait, this is just better curse. This is just like pre-nerf Curse of Bleeding.
Yeah, it does need to get in to deal 2 damage, but yeah, if you want a skull crack, then
With
yeah,
flash,
this is just
like even pings them for good measure. Imagine flashing this thing in response to stand unassailable. Or no, imagine
Yeah,
flashing
skull-
this thing in against Soul Sisters.
yeah, that'd be pretty nice. Obviously against stand unassailable, it's 2 mana, 2/2 flash, deal 8 to your opponent, which is not bad.
Yeah.
Though
Like I think with this thing, you actually have a good matchup against Soul Sisters now. Just because if you
definitely
get this thing
possible.
down, like they can't play creatures anymore.
Hell, I mean, you can even put then you play all your creatures and their soul sisters trigger on your creatures.
Yeah, like how does Soul Sisters even deal with this guy? Do they just board out all their Soul Sisters?
They hope that you don't draw it or they have removal.
Okay.
Yeah, but it turns soul sisters into hate sisters or something along those lines. Yeah, this is an option. Well, burn decks. Random card. We have Roots from Ruin, Wrath that makes both players get a land.
Are rats playable in this format?
They typically aren't played, but I don't think they're in good 4-mana Wraths.
There's
Um,
literal Day of Judgment.
Yeah, but Day of Judgment isn't like especially good. Like I think this is better than Day of Judgment.
Really? I mean, I guess you want to ramp, right?
Yeah, if you're playing Wraths, you probably want the man more than your opponent does.
And I mean, I guess End of Days also sees play, right?
Not recently, but yeah, End of Days has seen play. Does have a little bit of different use case in this. 5 mana is a lot more expensive than 4, especially against aggro. You can also just use this as ramp, I guess. Play it on an empty board to ramp, which is probably not ideal, but
I mean,
you can do it.
I have spent format just play ramp spell before, so yeah.
But option. So coming back from the future, because these following 2 cards got either changed or we just misread them.
Ooh, the future.
We have Labor Ambitions, which is a pretty solid targeted discard spell. White black. Is there even a word for this? Just hand attack someone.
Ostracize? Is that what the coercion? Distress? No, distress can hit lands. Whatever.
Whatever this effect is called.
Yeah. Prying Inquiry.
So yeah, Prying Inquiry is going to be a good reference to this card, but it's an enchantment. Not cheatable, unfortunately. You can't reanimate this or anything. You need to cast it. But Prying Inquiry gets a clue. This prevents your opponent from drawing. Got changed to not include you making your opponent draw, which is probably a good change. I think before discussing one of the noble cards, as well as stuff like Flesh Skull Serpent.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find it real fast. Political Opportunist to make your opponent windfall.
Right.
As a potential combo with this. Now it only affects your opponent's draw, so we'll prevent their RFEs, but we'll let your Political Opportunist go through.
And
So
preventing RFEs is something that this thing can do.
yeah, so the question is, how does this compare to Prying Inquiry? Of course, with the noble caveat that you do need to be in white black to play this. So any thoughts?
I mean, Prying Inquiry leaves behind an artifact, while Labor leaves behind enchantment. So if you want enchantments instead of artifacts in play, then you go with this thing.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point, because Prying Inquiry does see play in Dawson decks, and that kind of curve is very nice, whereas Labor Ambitions does not have that synergy, which is not great.
But also, Labor Ambitions can be bounced. So, if you want to run Expert Kalen, there you go.
Yeah, that is a very attractive proposition, particularly because Kalen does have bounce targets. There's not a ton that are targeted, or the few that do are kind of obnoxious to do so with, like Conspiracy of Ravens. Doesn't work too nicely with Kalen because you need to like play it turn 3 and then like flash Kalen in an upkeep to save it. It's not very fast.
Yeah.
Labor Ambitions it is fast. You can pick up with Kalen later on in the game.
I mean, you were previously running Death Pit trophies for this card, but I mean, do those 2 cards conflict too much, or are you running both anyways?
I think if you want something with Kalen, you probably play just labor ambitions if you are doing this kind of thing. All the appeal of, I mean, there's some appeal on stuff like Deathbit trophies, even though it's not targeted discard, which does make it worse just cast, and that is fetchable off Downhill Forge Master. Also attackable to Dawson,
Right.
which is irrelevant. But at the same time, a lot of stuff that beats up on discard decks, this does beat. And you mentioned Offie stops that, which
Yeah.
discard decks are very appreciative of.
I mean, if Dream Sight Well didn't get nerfed, then this would have also stopped that.
Also stops Cameo beating up on your decks a bit more.
Well, it doesn't stop Chart to Vast, notably.
It does not stop Chop Bats.
So yeah, I
That
can
is very
still
true.
chart for 7 cards, or I guess 6 cards if I want to.
Yeah. And there are definitely a few cards that just get around drawing. Thinking of like Seek Prophecy as maybe not a super notable one, but one that exists.
Journey Begins.
Yeah, Journey Begins, or the tutor effects. Though arguably that's good because then it doesn't stop bigger card draw if your opponent's playing it. You prefer to stop an Offie compared to other stuff, but then again, it could just be dead. So
Yeah. But at least you got a discard off of it.
yeah, the floor is pretty high on this card, even if it's not quite as good as playing Agree all the time. It does also not lose your life, which is nice. Additionally, if you want enchantment count for whatever reason, even though it's not as common as wanting artifacts, this does do that. Slapwood Woodgate is, of course, a very powerful card
Yep.
that this works very well with.
I mean, if you're going black, white, like Cadillacs, there you go.
But moving on, we have Beigong, the Echoed Ideal, which we are re-recording because we missed a very important factor of this card in that you can target your opponent's stuff.
Yeah, and it's permanent. So, your opponent has an Infectious Ego. Well, guess what you're doing with this thing?
You're getting Infectious Ego.
Yeah, like your opponent plays Infectious Ego, you obscurate the Infectious Ego, you get a copy of Infectious Ego, they have to sack the land that Infectious Ego becomes, and then next turn you swing in, because apparently this thing keeps this thing in play until the end of your next turn, and then your opponent has sacked 2 things, and you're extremely happy about that.
Yeah, also gain full life.
Yeah.
And just in general, this is a very nasty card to attack into, because if you have anything that targets, then suddenly your opponent's board is facing down itself, right?
Yeah, I mean, this thing works really well with removal spells, obviously. But, like, is there anything other than removal spells that also targets?
I mean, there's She-Host command, which is a...
Ooh, does that thing target...
Which?
Can it target both sides?
Yeah, 2 target creatures can't block this
Wait.
turn.
Oh, huh. Wait, does it have multiple targeting modes?
Yeah, plus, and as well as the plus 2 plus
Wait,
0
does this
mode.
thing trigger on every... If it targets multiple things, does this thing trigger for every single one of them?
Oh, looks like it, yeah.
Okay, so...
So the opponent has 3 infectious heals, and you somehow haven't lost the game yet. Well, She-Host command will turn it all around.
It doesn't give haste, right? It stays around for a turn, but I mean, I guess you can end step that play.
Yeah, and really just copying 2 of your opponent's anything is pretty nice. Also, both these cards are hybrid, so that's also very nice. I mean, and Amelia Blue isn't the best color for targeting permanents, but red is going to be pretty good. All the burn triggers it. Amelia, you probably don't want to rely too much on targeting opponent stuff, because occasionally you will run into like King Dancer dot deck and be very sad.
Yeah, I think you're so happy with some bounty tokens. I mean, you can they attack with bounty token, and you just target it and then trade the bounty token.
Yeah, would need everything to be instant, which isn't as easy.
Isn't Shell's
And you
command
do
instant? Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. But you will need to build the rest of the deck around this. And if you're playing like with burn, then suddenly it becomes a bit awkward, because then this is just kind of upgrading your burn. And this is a card by itself, right? Where you do need to play this card, right?
Yeah.
If you just had it in play for free, it'd be, of course, excellent. But
I mean, I'm pretty sure every card, if you had it in play for free, would be excellent.
yeah, well, this card especially. So, but if you top deck this card and you have nothing in hand but targets, then you're going to be pretty sad, because there's a 2-mana 2/1. But if you can load up your deck with things that target permanents, then yeah, this looks pretty exceptional. Of course, it would be a bit hard to build the deck, just because, well, things that target a bunch of things is not necessarily the most common thing to search for.
Or really
Like-
the most playable either.
Yeah, so like I'm thinking of things like Tidal Spite as another thing that maybe plays well with this, because it's legendary.
Right.
Tesla isn't sorcery now, but still works well
I
with
mean,
it.
just bounce your opponent's guy and get a copy of them. That's just insult to injury.
And there'll probably a bunch of other things that work with it, but there's definitely a deck building constraint in that respect. Only with the spells. And ideally you probably don't even want burn to be doing it, just because, well, you're not quite getting the upside you'd want, like compared to like Shio's command, which does a lot of things in addition. But yeah, this card is very exciting if you can build a deck around it.
Yep.
Next card we have Lotus Mastery, which is kind of like Weeping Lotus, but I'd like to point out that it makes treasure tokens instead of lotus petals,
Man,
which means the card's unplayable.
I mean, I feel like half the lowest cards in this set make treasure tokens. Or I mean, all the cards in this set make treasure tokens, but half of them reference lotuses.
Which makes them objectively unplayable.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like Weeping Lotus, except way more conditional, and a little bit slower.
AKA, it's a lot worse.
I mean, you draw 5 cards at the end of it, but you do also need to play 5 drop, so and a 4 drop and a 3 drop. So
Or no, you can just play five drops and get this thing up.
yeah, that's true. But you're also spending 25 mana with something in play to draw 5, which maybe it's worthwhile. I mean, it is kind of like a Weeping Lotus, and Weeping Lotus is really good. So, but at the same time, maybe you should just play Weeping Lotus instead of this. Also, know its number of colors, amount spent, so
Can't cheat it.
Yeah, can't cheat it, but also you can trade this with artifacts, which is nice. Moving on, we have kind of a simple card in Oozing Yogwai, which stabilizes you.
It's a 2-mana. It's a 4-mana Flame Tongue Kavu.
That gains you 3 life.
Wait,
And
this
has a
thing's
nice
insane.
3/4 body, and also has Scavenge. So if you want to beat up on aggro with your 4 drop, this exists. Unfortunately, Hell and Devastator also exists, so some competition there.
This thing gains you life. Like this thing's.
But yeah, this is definitely worth consideration. Next card we have Yi Feng, Lotus Apothecary, which odds you up 1 but only from the graveyard.
Huh. Interesting.
Does only cost 1. Does have 2 toughness, so nice Twisted Master would target.
Yeah. And Twisted Master gets stuff into the yard for this thing.
Yeah, so lots of nice synergy there. I don't think you want to specifically build around this card. I think this is a card that you more so play when your deck already supports it, just because it is a bit on the conditional side.
Yeah.
But if your deck does support this, I think this is a pretty darn powerful card.
Anyways, what's next?
Form the Sunbird. Now, merely, I think it's fair that these kind of form of the X cards.
Is there no image for this thing?
I think the image is messed up. But basically, 5 mana card deals 4 to every creature on ATB. Your life total becomes 4. If you would lose the game, you instead transform it, and then it becomes a 0/2 with you can't lose the game. And then you put it on the bottom, and your life total becomes 4.
It's 5 mana. It's unplayable.
Yeah, but think about how funny it would be to repeatedly legend making it out.
Huh?
So you have 7 mana, you play legend making, you get Fallen Sunbird in play.
Legend weaving, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wrap the board, and the opponent eventually tries to kill you. You lose the game, but you don't. You get Kratos on. You can't lose the game still, and it goes to bottom. And then you get then boom, you legend making again. Grab another form of Sunbird, or the same one, and repeat.
How are you winning the game?
Your opponent decks that.
How are you getting back legend weavings?
It shuffles in your deck, right?
Does legend weaving shuffle back to your? Oh, it does. Huh. Interesting.
And thus why would you do this instead of win the game in any other way? I don't know, but you can do it, and it's kind of funny.
Okay. Anyways.
Okay. You're on Costly Diversion, more Cane Dancer bait.
So it's like you get to steal a spell if you give them a creature.
Yeah, so ideally you steal their expensive Planeswalker and give them a Cane Dancer.
Okay, that's good, but like how do you get this into your graveyard the first time?
No idea. Presumably by hard casting it.
On what?
Your Cane Dancer that you played for other reasons.
Oh yes, hard casting Cane Dancer.
Tokens? Water Fracture tokens, baby.
Isn't that a bit late?
Other things, I don't know.
Tanya?
Random things.
Do you want to give your opponent Tanya?
I mean, they're probably not in blue. Yeah, it's a 1/1. And then you steal their like glitch or something.
Sure. You can also give them your 2/2 bounty tokens that you desperation out because you had nothing else to do.
Yeah, so the high end on this card is really good. The low end is really bad.
Actually, no, this thing doesn't go into Teamer Temple because it's black.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, never mind.
maybe a sideboard card if your opponent's playing really expensive cards. Then we have Inside of Spirit Scorned, which I'll point out to you that it's a good what looks beyond target.
Return. Holy crap! It is. Like it is just better than anything else that we have.
No idea. I'll let you stew on that as we move to the next card.
Well, no, it's black, so like it's not in color for what lurks, but I'll play it as a
what
fetch
looks
target.
it out, so
Yeah.
you were playing Fexigo. Moving on, we have another Yongmao, which now has 5 cards in the format. This Planeswalker has 4 abilities, so it has to be good, right?
So +1 makes it 1 with Grave Hate. To 0 does the Xiaolong, the other Xiaolong 5-drop Xiaolong thing, except it doesn't go into play.
Yeah, you got a creature and a land card, which is a fair bit of value. And then -2 is removal if you have high-powered creatures in your graveyard.
Is this thing good? I don't know if it is.
I don't know either.
Okay.
So let's move on. Let's move on to the next card. There's a lot of cards in the set that are like pretty clearly good enough, but like, would you play them? I don't know. Like Xiaolong Gust.
Xiaolong Gust.
This is a Cane Dancer target. It also has other utility.
It's strictly
also screws
better
over-
than Ignition Point as a Cane Dancer target, and Ignition Point was played in Temur Temple.
Additionally, this is really good against Thunder Road.
Ah, of course. The set with Thunder Road hate.
Yeah, so Panxiou has 2 sides, Thunder Road Enablers and Thunder Road Hate.
Perfectly balanced.
So yeah, if you want to bolt those Cane Danceable and hates Thunder Roads, go nuts.
Just replace all your Ignition Points from Temur Temple because the flash part, granting part wasn't doing anything anyways.
Another card that's kind of similar to an old card, we have Mortal Benediction, which is kind of similar to both Beckon the Damned and More No More. Slightly easier to set up than both of them, but also less powerful.
It ramps you. That's good enough.
Yeah, though preferably you do want a creature in yard. Though Amelie just 2-mana ramp is
I mean,
pretty
that's what More
decent.
and More was, right? It's just 2-mana ramp.
Yeah, though ideally it ramps you twice. Because it does have the Acquiesce. This doesn't have the Acquiesce, so preferably you'd be getting back a creature 2, even if you're playing on turn 2. But that's not always going to be possible.
Yeah.
But if you're playing More and More, you're probably set up to play this as well. Maybe you play the kind of like funny game where you play a 1-drop and then your opponent has to guess whether you have Mortal Benediction, which wants them to kill the 1-drop, or More No More, which wants them to not kill the 1-drop.
I mean, if they kill the 1-drop, then More and More doesn't ramp you though. So, I mean.
Yeah, so then you play Mortal Benediction instead.
Right.
Granted, this only works if they only have sorcery speed removal, but it's kind of interesting that they work in pretty much opposite scenarios.
Yeah.
Another reanimation spell, we have Undying Remorse, which does kind of a similar thing.
Any number of.
Except this time it gets creatures.
You can return 4 1-drops.
Definitely can.
Is there a combo?
Probably. Do I know what that combo is? No.
You can return any number of 0-drops. How many of those things are in the format?
I think there's just the Silent Wanderers. But yeah, you can get all those. Maybe a more normal thing would be like getting back 2 Muck Bruisers.
I mean, it's an instant, so like, yeah, there's potential. Even Military for Muck Bruisers.
There might be an infinite combo that you can get with mana value 4, total mana value 4 or less. I don't know what that is. Might exist. So you might be able to cheese into wins. I guess 1 would be 0 combo. Because this gets back both Border Guardian and 0. So that may be interesting.
Yeah, at instant speed too.
So next card we have Seeker of Far-Flung Lands.
It steals a land for an opponent. Is that good? I mean, it's a 3-drop that ramps you, I guess.
Yeah, 3-drop that ramps you, which is going to be at least okay. But here's the plan, right? You play this in your sideboard in like mid-rangey decks.
Okay.
You side it in versus control, and you steal the Nareba.
I thought you were going to steal their Mind of Queens.
That too. You play 2 of them.
Okay.
And then you steal their like Heart of Zudina too. That's maybe even nastier.
How many copies of these guys are you running again?
I don't know. You play like 7 in the sideboard, and hope that you don't get deck checked. Or like against 5 color decks, you like steal the 1 basic of the type they need.
Wait, that actually works.
You laugh at them
Holy crap!
as they You'll have your opponent's Slumbering Hillock. You grab the 1-man land.
I feel like yeah, you just use it to steal your opponent's heart, so that their heart deck can't heart anymore.
You beat the heart attack deck by stabbing their heart by stealing
Wait,
their
what
heart.
do you do if they already drawn it or already played it?
Well, then you know they have it in hand and can deal with it or something.
How do you deal with a land in hand?
Okay. So let's give me a hint a bit, but Lotus Barons. You see control decks probably going to be playing Lotus Barons now, which is just Field of Ruin, except slightly different.
Okay. Wait, where's
so then
Lotus
you
Barons?
steal the Lotus Baron to kill the heart. Think about it.
Wait. Huh. Wait, why are you why are you not playing your own Lotus Barons then? Actually,
because this has the potential to grab the Heart of Zydia.
Okay, sure. Are they playing Mirror Gates too?
That's why not? Yeah, they're playing Mirror Gates too.
Okay, so yeah.
Mirror Gate the Heart of Zydia.
Anyways, yeah. I mean, it's like an extraction effect, I guess. Are those cards? Yeah, it's called extraction effect, right? It's a land extraction effect that ramps you, I guess. That's what it is.
Yeah, I don't know if you main deck this. It's probably not unreasonable in the main deck. It does have the annoying thing that you technically know what your opponent has in hand if you know how they sideboarded.
Oh.
Or know their main deck. So if you're willing to go through those lengths, does that too. But it's kind of an interesting card, especially when those decks like Heart Attack that are relying on that Heart of Zydia, and you have the potential to grab it before they can.
Yeah.
Before they play Gated Realms or whatever. Speaking of stuff that grabs land, you have Harvest Reaper.
Wait, that's literally just like Sylvan Scrying for 2 mana.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be in yard, unfortunately. But you did point out earlier that you can scavenge on to your opponent's things, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Or maybe I should check comp rules so that make sure that you can actually. Yeah, looks good.
Okay. But this thing gets any colorless card, so I mean, using it to fetch lands, I feel like you're just better start running some other card.
Yeah, maybe.
Like Realms is better for just fetching lands. Heart Reaper can fetch any artifact that's colorless.
Can fetch itself even, which is kind of funny. But they're all pretty good colors, like lands and artifact-based decks. I mean, Scavenge too. You know what? Adds 2 mana. Jade Temple.
Wait, this holy crap! Yeah, you can Jade Temple to fetch your I don't know, change up
Jade Temple.
Change up Subdual and then or Titan Snare. Yeah, you can fetch your 1 copy of sideboard Titan Snare against when you're playing against the only deck in its GP that Titan Snare is good against.
Yeah, you can also scavenge onto the protection from all colors creature.
Right.
Blanking on the name.
Shining Crusader, I think it was called.
Yeah, Shining Crusader.
Yeah, and then clock them down way faster.
And then fetch another one maybe.
That too, yeah.
But yeah, I think the main problem with this is that finding a deck that wants to play it more than this card being good or not.
Also, find some way to get this thing into the yard as a mono artifact deck.
That would be the main kind of concern with it. So maybe you can't afford to play this in an artifact deck even because you don't have a way to get in yard. But if you can get into yard, really darn good card. So then we have another version of Barks.
Barks, Aspiring Arc Villain. Is this Barks before or after his other appearance?
I assume it's before because it's Aspiring Arc Villain and then it's Interplanar Mastermind.
Well, he improved a lot over however long the sets take apart.
So how do they compare though?
This one's a lot worse.
Comparison.
Right, like nothing can beat
5 mana,
OG Barks.
5 mana Planeswalker, 5 loyalty, pluses to 7, pro multicolored. How do you kill this guy?
You attack this thing. No, you Journey's End this guy.
Well, I mean, then people have to play Journey's End, which, I mean, why do you play Journey's End when you can play End of all things? True. She-Host Command does get around it. But what if you -3? Then you make a legendary construct artifact creature to blank the She-Host Command.
Good question.
So additionally, immediately there's the question of what does this do? So let's say if you're playing this bank command End of all things Bounty of the Gardens, and they're like, what the hell do I do against this? What does this actually do against that deck? What makes Mind Stones?
You can draw cards with those things, right? It's like +2, pay 1 mana to draw a card. That's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you go like Box. I think you perfectly ramp it out. Maybe play Titan's Palace, Ranger's Expertise is a card that grabs this.
Then you
+2, make a Mind Stone, untap, +2 again, make another Mind Stone, and then you have a whole bunch of mana to do whatever the hell you want with.
or you just
take over the world.
-3 to make a 6/4. I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah, unfortunately, the 6/4 is hit by everything that doesn't hit box. So your opponent's bank commands are suddenly very alive.
Is it? I mean, it kills the 6/4, but they still didn't kill Barks.
The Knights on bank command are unfortunately monocolored.
Right. Okay.
I mean, melee 6/4 isn't bad in every matchup, but definitely pretty killable. It makes box quite a bit killable as well. And then the ult
doesn't matter.
I mean, it's +2, and it's not that slow. And if you're just intending to Mind Stone a whole bunch, maybe it matters. But does the ult win the game, I guess is the question. So it doesn't immediately win the game, it's probably not, doesn't matter, as you said.
Unless you're playing a monocolorless deck, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, that's fair. It doesn't always win the game, because you need both yourself to not have much and your opponent have a bunch of stuff. But definitely maybe worthwhile if you need a 5-drop in big mana deck. Ranger's Expertise, mentioned before. Of course, triggers augmented for Thriving Building if you have 5 colors, because it's a 5-drop. Getting to the end, we have Palaces.
Okay, I need to search these guys up.
So these are dual lands with add like X or Y, and then you lose a life if you have, unless you have less life than an opponent.
So they're just worse than, and they're not fetchable, so like they're just worse than what we already have. I guess they're in set because you need lots of mana fixing for a multicolored set.
Yeah, I think the fact that Burn often has like less life than you because of like Banish Companion and Fetch Shot, like paying 3 life for the lands and whatnot, makes these a lot less attractive.
Yeah. Ironically, it's actually good against control decks because control decks tend to have lots of life.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if you have like 20 of these, 24 of these, in an extreme case, and then you play against a deck that has your mana is only as painful as your opponent's mana, right?
Yeah.
If you're not hitting them, which is kind of funny.
I don't think it's playable, right?
Yeah, granted that mana base probably isn't good, so probably not particularly good. As mentioned before, we do have a Field of Ruins.
Hey, I know that you were pretty ecstatic to finally see a Field of Ruin in the format, right? Like you were waiting for that to get printed.
Yeah. Yeah, I would like Field of Ruin effects, because they're just a really nice kind of utility land that low color decks can play pretty happily. Also, there's a lot of like really like annoying utility lands in the format. I mean, people complain about Monument of Queens all the time. I was like, shoot, I lost in the long game to Monument of Queens. Well, here's your answer. Right.
Yeah, I don't think people are going to stop complaining though.
Yeah, but this is something that you can play, and and this requires a bit less deck building cost than like Mirrorgate.
Yeah.
On top of not turning off your own Monument of Queens.
And also mana fixes. Like technically it does mana fix you.
Yeah. And it would even double mana fix you if you play Quillia. Turn 2 Quillia, turn 3 Lotus Bands, your opponent's land.
That actually sounds pretty funny. But probably
yeah, honestly not. I mean, Quillia has a fair amount of utility. Play 4 Lotus Barons in your otherwise perfect mana deck. Play a couple Quillias. Doesn't seem unreasonable.
You still need other things to combo with that card though.
With Quillia? I mean, enough decks make tokens. I think that it's playing like two or 3 Quillias is probably reasonable.
I mean, people have done that before, and every time I've seen Quillia come down, it just does nothing.
Well, I mean, Pronouncer Preserves has seen a lot of play, and that makes...
Oh no, it makes a token that gets stolen by Quillia, and then nothing else happens.
Well, your land is still enchanted, right? Oh wait, hold on. Okay, does Pronounce even target?
Oh,
no, the Pronouncer does not. Adjudicate does not target.
Yeah, so like they steal the token, and then they choose where to put it.
Oh wait, no, Adjudicate does target.
Wait, what?
Attached to target land.
Huh? So wait, so does that mean like the aura still goes onto your land? But
yeah, so then your opponent controls it, so they're probably not going to sack it. So then you make an antelope, but actually they make an antelope, and you make a fish.
I mean, that's...
So you get a 1/2 and a 1/1, and they get a 1/1, which is pretty good. I mean,
sure, but it's nothing like back when shifting lands were in the format, and you can like literally master your opponent by playing Quillia.
Yeah, I mean, you're still like preventing the treasure or like Adjudicate land from being relevant. So
yeah, Why are we talking about Quillia again? This is about Lotus
because of
Barons.
Lotus Bands.
Okay,
Because
so
you might play Quillia with Lotus Bands.
yeah.
And then last lands, Scavenge lands.
Okay, where are all the lands called?
Just search Oracle Scavenge type land.
Okay. Griddle Dang, Lonely. Okay, sure.
So these are all like really fair.
What? Some of these guys seem pretty on rate.
Yeah, that's what I mean by fair. They're like on rate, but they're not fetchable. Any of them in particular stand out to you?
Reclusive Copes, because it's 3 mana to make a Death Toucher. That has to be really annoying on attacks.
Yeah, but it's like, but if you trade with a land, you're pretty happy, right?
What? But no, you literally traded one of your creatures for a land. Wait, right. Well, no, well, if you
Is that good or bad?
if you traded your 6-drop for a land, I don't think you're very happy about that.
Yeah, but what 6-drop is trading for land?
They ran Alpha.
Well, I mean, that's not. I think Layering Alpha is doing a couple other things.
I don't know. Infectious Ego, I guess.
Well, but then they get both the ETB and the tax, and they kill your land.
Rapacious Rattler. No, wait, that has first strike.
I mean, it trains with the first strike, the black-red one.
Okay, yeah, good point.
I mean, they do all have Scavenge,
Yeah.
and Scavenge is obviously worth something. So I mean, maybe the green-black one is really good because you play it in a graveyard deck, and then you randomly Scavenge for value.
And then you randomly brick wall one of your opponent's creatures when both players are down on cards.
Yeah. Like the green-white one has a nice like Scavenge ratio.
Scavenge
Like
ratio.
4 mana for 3. 4 mana for 3. What's it?
Counters.
Yeah.
And then it's also 4 mana for 3/3 vigilance.
Yeah, which is alright. Though obviously not anywhere close to like Lumbering Hillock, which is also fetchable.
I mean, I don't think anything's beating Lumbering Hillock anytime soon.
Yeah, probably not.
Treacherous Oasis can't be blocked, so that's interesting.
Yeah, it does only have 2 power.
It's like Tar Pit.
Yeah, but Top It I think only costs 3 to animate.
Wait, it only costs 3 to animate?
The Cannon Man lands are really, really good.
Okay,
Cost 3 to animate and is a 3/2.
Wow. Oh, no, all the
Granted-
cannon lands are really good, except for Lava Claw Reaches.
Yeah, I mean these do Scavenge, so there's pretty clear upside there. I think the best one to just play naturally is probably the blue-white one, because it is a really good blocker.
It only takes 2 mana to activate.
Yeah, 2 mana, 1 for 1.
Huh. And then once it dies, you pay 2 mana to put a counter on something.
Yeah, and also, I mean, Flyer. I mean, granted, you probably don't play it in Flyers, but maybe if you have like some equipment, you can suit it up. They have a Shio.
Yeah.
I think these are a bit not quite good enough in general to like overcome like how good the fetchable manlands are.
Yeah, probably.
And that is the end of the set review.
Oh, that was a lot of cards.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, also a squirrel finally responded. So it's supposed to be pronounced Panxiou, probably. Or Panxiou, right? Yeah. So anyways, the set is pronounced Panxiou. So if you want to just so that you know, I guess. I don't know. You guys are probably gonna keep calling it Panxiou or something.
But this was the end of our set review for PAX East. Next time we'll be reviewing PAX West.
Actually, what's Nangel's NJX? Was that
NJB.
NJB? What does that stand? Okay, what can that stand for?
New Jersey basketball. I don't know.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Well, anyways, any conclusions about the set other than wow, that's a lot of cards that are powerful.
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of very powerful cards in the set. I think a lot of them also work. Like, there's a lot of cards that don't quite work with what's currently being played, but there's also a lot of cards that do work with what's currently being played.
Unfortunately, Adaptive Stance is not one of them, even though I really wish it was.
Yeah, but like obviously 5-color tribal-esque stuff is going to be good when we already have very good 5-color tribal stuff existing.
Tribal-esque stuff? I thought it's more like just 5-color.
Well, just like five-color tribal with 5 colors being the tribe.
Right.
Like a couple of good demons and profane adversaries, obviously very good. They're not being played as much currently as it used to be. Stuff like Liar's Dice obviously goes into shells that are currently being played. Maybe you need to change up the mana a bit. Stuff like Zufu, the Spring Leaf Drum
Right,
guy.
that guy.
Obviously goes in creature vomit type shells, which, while not being played, obviously has been good. Immediately, like 90% of the deck was nerfed, but could his companion still exist, and thus the deck will never die.
Oh, maybe. I guess it's back, but it's no longer as funny as before. Like we can no longer do the stuff like EHS and Brothers Reunion, and then having like 6 containment or what's that guy called? Something priest. Yeah, 6 confining priests on the board at once.
Yeah, but there's also a lot of stuff that does kind of inspire new things. I mean, Nagui is probably the main one. Mind controlling your opponents is a pretty powerful effect. Messenger of the Heavens has some real nice potential to inspire some kind of more value-oriented Blink deck.
Insider of Spirit Scorned. I'm still waiting on what to do with this thing.
Sorry, which card?
Insider of Spirit Scorned.
Insider of Spirit Scorned.
The guy that you said was good for 8 sack.
Well, you see, you turn Ancestral Council into this with a What Lurks Beyond, get back Ancestral Council, then you get another What Lurks Beyond.
I see. And then you lurk this guy into...
And you lurk the Ancestral Council got back with the What Lurks that you got into another one of these.
Okay, you said you're already running 2 copies, so it's no longer just a splash.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that you can imagine it being good.
I can, but...
Maybe.
You know, I feel like after also like no longer having access to Beckon means I lose a lot of the ability for the deck to actually do stuff.
Yeah, like I don't know, the deck is left as an exercise to the reader. Like you can make the deck on your own. It's probably good.
Figure out your own 8 sack chains, or I guess 4 sack at this point because Beckon dies.
I mean, it's a shaman. Do you know what else is a shaman?
Infectious Ego?
Yes. Do you know what else is a shaman? Is this actually a shaman?
Opinion Oracle? Is that a shaman?
Yeah, that's probably a shaman.
It is, I think. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's a shaman.
Okay, so
there's some synergy. So you can Opinion Oracle, Abound out Selective Breeding, get that, which maybe does something. Good value thing, maybe. Probably.
Well, anyways, we're spending too long talking about this one card, so yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a bunch of stuff that I don't really know what it does, but there's definitely stuff you can do with it. Lei Gong, that could ideal. On top of some cards that definitely go places if you're willing to play them. Labor Ambitions, you mentioned Kalen for that. Spirit Lantern Incendiary, Burn. Couple cards that mess up commonly played cards. Couple cards like Xiaolong Gust and the White Blue Command messing up Thunder Road.
Yeah.
Is a pretty funny interaction, but yeah, a lot of pretty powerful cards in the set, lots of interesting cards in the set. Definitely makes sense that it won the vote in the on major landslide.
Yeah.
3.57 when the maximum possible vote is 4.
Oh, anyways, yeah, and I guess that's it. So thanks for watching the set review, even though it's not going to be edited, I think, because I can't bother to now. But yeah.